Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the Northern Territory Legislative Assembly recognise the importance of the Northern Territory's regions and their role in developing the Territory economy and recognise and support their plans for economic growth. Madam Speaker, the Territory may be small in population, but it is spread across a vast expanse. It means that each of our regions has its own unique features and characteristics, as well as challenges and opportunities. While the majority of our population resides in the major cities of Darwin and Palmerston and its surrounds, the Territory's economic opportunities do not stop there. It is critical, Madam Speaker, we invest in our regions the economic growth that they deserve when we're talking about jobs, business opportunities and the Territorians who live there. I brought this motion to the House today to highlight just how important each of our regions are to the collective economic, social and cultural success of the entire Territory. We are the sum of our parts and we need to do all we can, Madam Speaker, to hold up, support, advocate for and invest in each of those parts. Unfortunately, the CLP who are in government are the ones who don't seem to get it. We've seen them effectively withdraw services and investment from many of our communities. Regional and remote roads funding, Madam Speaker, has been drastically cut by the CLP government, and we've spoken about that many times in this House, not just because it affects the many electorates that we represent in opposition, but because it impacts the economy of the whole of the Territory when we don't have that work in connecting our road networks. And all we get from the CLP government, Madam Speaker, is we can't afford it. And that's pretty much code for it's not a priority. And more so we're seeing a code that they don't want to do anything because they're afraid of the hard work. Madam Speaker, our Labor opposition team will continue to argue that you cannot afford not to invest in economically enabling infrastructure, but that's not the strategy of the CLP government, Madam Speaker, as we all know well into the 14 months of their leadership. Regional economic growth plans, Madam Speaker. Huge volumes of work that have provided a clear economic direction for each of our regions have completely disappeared from the Northern Territory government's websites. Presumably that means that the government has absolutely slashed these growth plans. So much work, Madam Speaker, went into developing those plans. The work of dedicated public servants, local government representatives, industry representatives and community representatives, all cast aside by the CLP government, who has replaced them with nothing. Madam Speaker, it is very clear demonstration of the CLP's complete and utter lack of vision and disregard for our regions and lack of planning for our regions, Madam Speaker. We heard yesterday that the Territory Coordinator on the Chief Minister's big ticket and the big saviour for all things economic here in the Northern Territory, the centrepiece for the economic initiatives of the CLP government, is yet to consider a single new project or designate a major project, Madam Speaker. Every time you see one of the CLP government at one of their many photo shoots out wearing a hard hat, it is to spruik a project that started under Labor. And whenever they put out a press release, Madam Speaker, claiming credit for progress on a private project, it was a project that has been greenlit by the former Labor government. Then they have nothing, Madam Speaker, to date to attract private investment here. There is not a single private investment project, Madam Speaker, that the CLP can claim that they have greenlit. It's been confirmed by both the Chief Minister and the Treasurer, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure it hurts them to admit it, but it is the truth. This is the sign of a small, mean and immature government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we talk about Verdant Minerals Amaru Phosphate Project in the member for Barclay's electorate, when we talk about the Beetaloo, the return of gold mining in Tennant Creek, Wildman Agricultural Hub. Well done, CLP, for celebrating the continuation of these projects because they started under Labor and you have done nothing yourselves. And now trying to take credit, Madam Speaker, this is the icing on the cake, This is how immature they are and how desperate they are to stay relevant in the space of the economy because they have nothing to show for it. They are now trying to take credit for the Albanese Labor government's commitment and partnership with the US President around an additional $100 million to the Arafura Rare Earth Nolens project, Madam Speaker. This project is pivotal for the historic agreement that has been signed by the Labor Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and President Donald Trump of the USA earlier this week that will bolster the resilience and security of Australia and the US partnership, in particular focused on the critical minerals and rare earths supply chain, Madam Speaker. The Territory is a key player in this agreement. We are massive winners out of it, but trying to own this project as your own, Madam Speaker, the CLP government, it's even rich for that lot over there. But I guess that's what happened when you don't have your own economic vision for the Territory and you have nothing to show for it to date, 14 months in. In fact, Madam Speaker, as we've seen with the art gallery in Darwin, the State Square Art Gallery just behind the Parliament here, and the art gallery in Alice Springs, they are actually more interested in stripping our regions of economic boosting projects than doing the hard work. The CLP government just don't seem to get that strategic public investment stimulates private investment and unlocks economic potential right across the Territory. They might not even be keen, Madam Speaker, to stand up for our regions, but we sure will be. Now, Madam Speaker, we'll go to a visit around the Territory and talk about some of the regions at hand. The Big Rivers region, Madam Speaker, where I live and where I mostly represent my electorate, the great diversity and it has enormous potential. It is home of agriculture, tourism, defence, energy, mining and construction. Strategically located as a freight and logistics hub in the Territory, Madam Speaker. Economic value of around $4.8 billion. 1 in 5 of the country's mangoes comes from the Big Rivers region, as does most of the 40% of the Territory's beef exports. Home to more than 1,000 local businesses and much-loved tourism hotspots, Madam Speaker. Raff Bay Tyndall and the Great Electorate of Arnhem is undergoing a $1.1 billion defence upgrade, Madam Speaker, and the redevelopment there has had a positive impact for local businesses and Territory businesses from inside and outside the Big Rivers region. Unfortunately, under the CLP government, we are not seeing any vision from Katherine or the Big Rivers region. And what's happened, Madam Speaker, to the Katherine Logistics and Agribusiness Hub? The CLP has not uttered a single word about it, Madam Speaker. Zero things have happened under the member for Katherine, who is a minister of the CLP government and who has not a single bit of economic vision for her own region and her own electorate, Madam Speaker. And I know that if you ask the key business people around not just Katherine but across the Territory, they would say that the project, the Katherine Logistics and Agriculture Hub, is a critical economic development project for the region in order to help establish new industries and businesses and to improve existing transport links. So let's see if the CLP government's going to contribute any type of update whatsoever on this project in their contribution today. It is in the CLP's too hard basket, we think, Madam Speaker, so I would love to be proved wrong on that. Madam Speaker, the CLP has scrapped road projects like the next stage of the Katherine East roadworks. They have shamefully scrapped the Phelps River crossing and they have scrapped much-needed barge landing upgrades in some of our most remote parts of the Northern Territory, Madam Speaker, which puts food security for many Territorians at risk. The only real investment, Madam Speaker, going into the region of the Big Rivers under the CLP is the upgrade to the Buntine Highway, which an existing joint investment project with the federal government anyway, so it's not something they could have got out of, thankfully. Madam Speaker, we move next to the East Arnhem region. Part of my electorate does cover the East Arnhem region. An enormously important economic region for the Northern Territory, going through a significant transition with the closure of Rio Tinto just on the horizon. The community of Nhulunbuy, Madam Speaker, has a strong vision and the surrounding communities post-mining future, and it is something that they have been working towards and planning for a long time. The community, Madam Speaker, of Nhulunbuy and the township and the surrounding communities are focused on new opportunities in industries such as education, research, health, aged care, fisheries, transport, logistics, defence, forestry and land management. And the region, Madam Speaker, say they want to keep everything that is good about Nhulunbuy the way it is and to continue to improve it through this collaborative work from government and non-government. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any interest from the CLP government. Madam Speaker, our former Labor government provided initial funding for the Gove Peninsula Futures transition work to help with land tenure, master planning, economic development planning, town governance planning and more. And that was a funding bucket of $2.1 million over 3 years. The CLP has provided no further funding to support this transition, a huge gap, and they will be the government who drops the ball on the Gove Peninsula transition, Madam Speaker. The successful transition of the Gove Peninsula needs to be a significant priority of any government. We urge the CLP to do the work. Madam Speaker, residents in Nhulunbuy and the East Arnhem region are very anxious to hear from the government about their level of commitment, but they're not getting anything from them at this point other than being talked about. Madam Speaker, the failure to commit or invest will have long-term implications for economic growth, jobs, security for the future and community amenity in the East Arnhem region. The CLP government does need to step up, Madam Speaker, to ensure certainty for investors, businesses and most of all for those residents who live in the East Arnhem region. Earlier this week on the radio, the Chief Minister said she was doing her bit, but it's not clear what that bit is, Madam Speaker, and here's what we would like to see them be focused on. Ensuring housing stock for investors, businesses and residents to access now and into the future is secured. Upgrades to road and transport infrastructure, such as sealing and upgrading the Central Arnhem Road to support freight, tourism and industry reliability. Reliable air services to enhance tourism and business access, while also providing residents with lifestyle connectivity and service access to other areas, either in the Northern Territory or just outside. Enhancing the Gove Port infrastructure to support future fisheries and aquaculture and potential defence investment. Madam Speaker, that's the blueprint right there and it's come from the region itself, so we would like to hear what the government is doing in those areas. The growth sectors, Madam Speaker, as identified in the now scrapped Regional Economic Development Plan include tourism, agriculture, aquaculture, resources, mining, conservation, eco-management, construction and civil works. And I think it is important to put all of this on the record, Madam Speaker, because we in the Labor team are very concerned that CLP is poised and turned its back on people of Nhulunbuy and the East Arnhem communities in that region. They have said very little about a future plan for the East Arnhem region, but it is critical, Madam Speaker, that the CLP step up to ensure the future of this critical part of the territory is secure and certain. Moving to Jabiru and Kakadu, Madam Speaker, and I spoke about this last week, but I'll put it again on the record. The concerns about the CLP's lack of commitment to Jabiru and Kakadu and the entire West Arnhem region. We know the CLP have ripped out money without warning, without consultation, without even an afterthought or visit to communities. And when we talk about the Jabiru Transition Project, Madam Speaker, which aims to support its transformation from a mining town to an ecologically sustainable tourism town, this is something that the CLP is dropping the ball right as we speak. Without warning, without consultation, Madam Speaker, the CLP government cut $20 million out of the Binning Resource Centre. That is intended to be a central part of the new tourism offerings in the Jabiru Township as the heart of Kakadu, Madam Speaker. The transition project is about building a sustainable economy, a sustainable future for the entire Jabiru and Kakadu region. This has been on the books for many years, Madam Speaker, and it was supported by the former federal coalition government. It will support existing local businesses to flourish. It will allow new businesses to grow and expand. It will support long-term jobs for locals and visitors to the region, Madam Speaker. The CLP lacklustre support for this project is deeply concerning and perhaps comes from a time before this current CLP government and a previous government where the then Treasurer, Member for Fong Lim, Dave Tollner, wrote to the federal government and basically offered to cut Jabiru out and back to the Commonwealth. An absolutely shameful act, Madam Speaker. And I'm not sure, Madam Speaker, if we have even seen the CLP bother to go out to Jabiru and to places like Gumbalanya in the West Arnhem region to talk about what the transition project means for the ongoing economic fortunes of that region and the community and the residents. Madam Speaker, it's further evidence of the lack of care from the CLP government and the lack of care they have for Territorians when it comes to those territory businesses when people are living regionally, beyond Darwin and Palmerston, which seems to be their only focus. Madam Speaker, we move to the great region of Barkly. And lucky for Barkly, Madam Speaker, it hasn't been a lot going on before with the CLP, but those projects that have now started to come to fruition, which thankfully have been continued to support, did start under Labor. And there are some big projects, Madam Speaker, which haven't come to fruition, which we will continue to support as the Labor opposition, and that is Sun Cable, the world's largest solar farm, which will originate in Elliott and deliver significant jobs across the Barkly region. The Beetaloo, Madam Speaker, which will deliver jobs and economic benefit to the Barkly region. And gold, Madam Speaker, gold is back. Large-scale gold mining is back in full swing for the first time in 20 years at Nobles Knob. 1 in 3 workers, Madam Speaker, is from the Barkly, and 1 in 6 are filled with Aboriginal Territorians or Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians as workers in that very critical and important project. It's a good start, but there's certainly more opportunity for the locals of Barkly and the businesses of the Barkly, Madam Speaker. Because of its proximity, Madam Speaker, these major projects, Tennant Creek is poised to become a major mining town once again and a minerals services centre. And it is exciting times for the Barkly. There is vast economic opportunity for that region as a result of these projects that were enabled by the former Labor government. And that will come, as we know, with some challenges, including that the current government of the day, the CLP, needs to ensure that local people take on the responsibility and the challenges of being trained for those job opportunities now and into the future, and the jobs that will be delivered by these projects that will start to come online bit by bit, and the growth of these projects also. And, Madam Speaker, there needs to be adequate housing and services to support the growth of economic activity in Tennant Creek and the Barkly region. We have not heard any plans for this, Madam Speaker, at all. And again, training, skilling up locals, boosting housing supply for social and affordable housing, a big area that the CLP completely missed, and we heard that just yesterday with the legislation that went through. Social and affordable housing doesn't seem to be on their radar at all for any of the regions. So these, we hope, will be added to their to-do list. Madam Speaker, when we talk about Aboriginal businesses and the opportunity for economic growth here in the Northern Territory, now, we didn't get a chance to speak about this last week, but the contribution of our Aboriginal businesses to the economy is huge. There are approximately 1,400 Aboriginal businesses in the Northern Territory, Madam Speaker, contributing $3 billion to the Territory economy. And I know Member for Barkly knows this as the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, because he was there at the launch of the Northern Territory Indigenous Business Network's Aboriginal Economic Development Forum 2025 and heard that very stat from the businesses themselves, and I think was very pleased to be able to repeat that stat because it's a great story for the Territory, Madam Speaker, but unfortunately the Member for Barkly is the only one supporting Aboriginal businesses and talking about the regions in the 17 CLP government. Madam Speaker, doing incredible things across the Northern Territory, our Aboriginal businesses deserve to be recognised for their contribution, despite the odds that they face, any business face, in taking the risk to start, the risk to grow and the risk to continue on when they do expand. And Madam Speaker, this year, the Northern Territory Indigenous Business Network, NTIBN, hosted the Black Business Awards, which is a testament to their dedication and their resilience and their keen business acumen when the significant achievements are celebrated across the Northern Territory. 130 businesses were nominated for an award right across the Northern Territory through the NTIBN's award process. And congratulations, Madam Speaker. I think it's a timely opportunity to congratulate the following businesses who were recognised on the evening. The Black Business of the Year 2025, North East Arnhem Land Aboriginal Corporation. Black Female Business of the Year, Black Female Business Owner of the Year, Katie Risk, Billawarra Truck and Training. Black Male Business Owner of the Year, Sean Tatipata, the Deadly Vision Centre. Young Black Entrepreneur of the Year, Brandon Rusker, Blumica Contracting. Black Impact Creator of the Year, Stedman's Constructions and Engineering. Black Construction and Resources Business of the Year, AKJ Services Proprietary Limited. Black Sole Trader Micro Business of the Year, Pink Apple Hair. Black Creative of the Year, Barbara Women's Centre. Black Tourism Business of the Year, Bawaka Yolnu Experience. Black Consultancy of the Year, Dumbara Consultancy Services. Black Community Controlled Organisation, Gulawinku Women's Space. Black Startup of the Year, Mix Cranes Australia. Black Business Growth Award, Wirrabra. Best Allied Business of the Year, Power and Water Corporation. Madam Speaker, we have seen that just yesterday the Chief Minister said that her government was in no rush to invest in our economy or develop economic plans for our territory or our regions. Well, that's pretty obvious, Madam Speaker, because they haven't done anything in the last 14 months that shows they support the regions. We call on the CLP government, Madam Speaker, to get on with the work, to not recreate more work and reinvent the wheel, look at those economic regional development plans and stand to support our regions, to assist our regions, to guide our regions, as what is expected of a government, and to work with the federal Labor government and to not use a combative approach so that every community across the Northern Territory that sits outside Darwin and Palmerston can benefit from the collaboration that we expect any government, regardless of what political sphere they come from, we expect any government to support in the Northern Territory. So we do call on the CLP government to respond to our regions to make sure they're not just adding lip service, that they are truly talking about the growth plans or the economic plans, but you need to have that blueprint, that roadmap essentially, Madam Speaker. And so far, one of the biggest concerning areas under the government has been to remove those economic growth plans for each of our regions. Our 6 regions in the Northern Territory, Madam Speaker, I've spoken about 3 of them as an example, and Madam Speaker, it has been very exciting to see some new projects grow, which had been greenlit under the Labor government and thankfully have not been scrapped because either the CLP government tries to claim credit for it or they have no way to back out because that may be perhaps tied to an agreement already, i.e. with the federal government. So to be able to see growth in our regions and continued support for our regions, but that's where that investment, the road networks are so important, Madam Speaker. The enabling infrastructure, I don't need to tell you, you're from Central Australia, you know how much it means to have a project taken away or put in to a community, a town or a region, Madam Speaker, and to see the CLP continually scrapping projects and investment and development, that could mean the big change between opening up tourism opportunities, agriculture and business, aquaculture opportunities for businesses, and seeing more businesses on country in particular, working with some of those amazing businesses that I read out who received that award, but many, many other nominations for those finalists for those award categories just last week with the Black Business Awards, seeing more opportunity to grow the Territory's economy through the support. And I know the government's spoken about reducing red tape. There's not very many examples of how they've done that, other than I know the motor vehicle registries always comes up. But if there was more sincere work guiding that, they don't have to start from scratch. But if a CLP member contributes today, particularly a minister, I would be very appreciative if they could explain why those plans, those regional plans, have now been removed from government websites, because they're guiding plans across regions. They're not political plans. They weren't Labor plans. They were work of the public service, who is apolitical. There was work from our community members who have invested much of their own personal time, as much as some of our community members and businesses who've committed their professional time to developing those plans for those regions. But we don't see the support for the regions that was followed under the former Labor government, when we had a decentralised model to be able to provide more decision making back in our regions, so people didn't have to rely on just the main centres of Darwin and Alice Springs to guide the whole of the Northern Territory. Being able to provide an opportunity for the training wheels to come off for each of those regions when it comes to decision making, to be able to problem solve and decision make, and to spend money and decide on that money locally through that decentralised model. And I understand that slowly but surely that model of each of our regions has been centralised again. And I would very much urge the government to take this time, 14 months in, to reflect on why that has happened, and to note that I haven't heard a single positive of that happening. Many of the community members in my electorate of Arnhem, across the different communities in the townships, have asked, well, why don't we do it in this way anymore? Why don't we see those public servants come out and meet with us anymore? And that's because decision making has been taken away and eroded since the CLP government has come in. So it's very clear, Madam Speaker, that the CLP government is completely focused on just Darwin and Palmerston, and I think it is a huge mistake to see that each of our regions will slowly become the victims of an ignorant, naive and actually quite arrogant government, to not see that they are being developed and supported as much as places in Darwin and Palmerston. I think there's a real danger there. And as we know, Madam Speaker, it can take years to restore funding. It can take years to rebuild government trust once it is pulled away. And it can take years to rebuild what was broken. And we saw that in 2016. We experienced ourselves. And unfortunately, Territorians are now seeing that more and more so in the last 14 months. And whether it's a shared position of the CLP government, or everyone's too frightened, afraid, or have been told that they can't speak up for the regions, I think that will be a telling of time, Madam Speaker, because right now we're not seeing any advocacy for the regions, we're not seeing any economic vision, and just last week, Madam Speaker, I know you're very much aware of it, but the people of Alice Springs and Central Australia absolutely gutted that with the CLP pulling the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art Gallery project completely, because some weird little stoush that the Treasurer, who's an Alice Springs, resident and based out of there, decided to jump the gun and try and pull some kind of weird trick or something with the federal government. Now everyone in Alice Springs, everyone in Central Australia loses out, and not even to have the guts to face the people of Alice Springs, face the people of Central Australia about that decision, when they're basically, as far as I'm aware, if not all, very close to all of the CLP 17 members of government were all in Alice Springs that weekend, and getting great photos and talking to people, and not a single breath of a word that was what the government was going to do. So I find that very cowardly, very gutless, So maybe the member for Katherine went out and told people that they were going to cut the gallery. I would love to hear her contribution to say that she fronted up and she eyeballed people of Alice Springs and said, we're taking away this great economic opportunity for the people of Alice Springs. We do not support the people of Central Australia. I'd love to hear her recite any of those conversations that she had, since she said that's what they did. They talked to lots of people. Did they talk to people about pulling the art gallery? I doubt it, Madam Speaker, because this is a government who is cowardly, who cannot speak up, who doesn't get a chance to support the regions, probably if they do want to do that quietly from the background, because they're not allowed to by their current leader. So let's see if there's a change in leadership. Maybe we'll see a change in the vision, or the lack of vision now, the change of the vision of the CLP.
Your time has expired, member for Arnhem. Treasurer, member for Namatjira.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I rise to speak to the motion on the economic value of our regions. And yet again, I hear the Leader of the Opposition trying to rewrite history. And I think the Territory Labor Party are living in denial, absolute denial. Because when we look at the region, I only speak for Alice Springs for 8 long years. What do we get from Territory Labor? I think we got an upgrade to the women's shelter, which I must say was well needed, but I think that was about all we got. Anyway, I digress. But Madam Speaker, the CLP government supports the motion's principle that we recognise the importance of the Northern Territory's regions, which we already do. But we do not support Labor's idea of what a plan for regional economic growth should look like. The truth is that when Labor were in government, they couldn't deliver a letter, let alone a project, Madam Speaker, proving they were incompetent when it comes to matter of regional economic development. Instead, Labor left regional Territorians with a $1.4 billion budget black hole, net debt accelerating towards their arbitrary $15 billion debt ceiling, and a litany of projects for our regions uncosted, uncashed and underdeveloped. And yet here we are talking about the importance of the Northern Territory regions and their role in developing the Territory economy when Labor turned their back on the regions and their economy during their 8 long years of government. And I listened to the Leader of the Opposition talking about particularly, again, trying to rewrite some history, or maybe, I don't know what she was trying to spread when she was talking about the Katherine logistics hubs. We're fully committed to delivering on the Katherine logistics hubs, and I speak to the Federal Minister about this on a regular basis. But there's a reason that we can't deliver the Katherine logistics hub, and the Leader of the Opposition lives in Katherine, so I thought that she might know this, but maybe it slipped her mind and she failed to mention it. There are ongoing negotiations with custodians in the Katherine region where the hub is to be located, and there has not been a resolution between those custodians on the roles of the people there, and then who will get royalties from that logistics hub. So that is why the Katherine logistics hub hasn't gone ahead. Something that may have slipped the the Leader of the Opposition's mind. But also when we're talking about Jabiru and Gove, we're doing a lot of work out at Gove to make sure that that community has a life once Rio leaves in a few years' time. And it's something that the previous Labor government really failed to do. And I listened to the Leader of the Opposition's contribution when she was talking about particularly Jabiru. And Labor's idea of supporting those regions and helping them develop was just throw money at them and build stuff. Well, Madam Speaker, I can tell you that does not build a thriving community. There are some basic fundamentals for communities that need to be met. There needs to be business, there needs to be industry, there needs to be growth to support all those other things to create a thriving and growing community. You can't just walk in, throw some cash in and build some stuff and hope for the best. And that's what Labor's mantra was. And no wonder we're seeing issues. But Madam Speaker, only the CLP will deliver regional growth, and I'm glad to have this chance today to talk about supporting the economic development of our regions, an issue raised in this House that for once actually matters to Territorians. Madam Speaker, this CLP government has a strong record when it comes to recognising the importance of our regions and supporting them to play the central role they play in the Territory's economy. And, Madam Speaker, contrary to what the Leader for the Opposition says, the CLP definitely has a plan to support our regions. We're going to support economic growth, and it's called our Rebuilding the Economy strategy. Again, maybe the Leader of the Opposition failed to check that one out as well. That's right, Madam Speaker. This is the strategy we unveiled at the start of this year to make the Territory the best place to do business, and we have not stopped talking about it since. Madam Speaker, the Opposition clearly have their fingers in their ears because the regions are embedded in our strategy as the bedrock of our Territory economy, particularly in our key industries of energy, defence, agriculture, mining and tourism. Madam Speaker, in fact, the CLP is so supportive of economic growth in our regions that our Rebuilding the Economy strategy could be renamed the Rebuilding the Region strategy, and Labor still wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Labor are not serious and have not been serious about building our regions, and they're clearly not serious about regional economic development if they haven't bothered to read the government strategy. Madam Speaker, this strategy works to create jobs, bring people to the Territory, and increase our capacity to service the regions through an economy that can support improved goods and service delivery. Through our strategic priorities of unlocking regional growth and connecting the Territory, the CLP Whanokē-Aro government is building infrastructure that will build up our regions and their industries. Madam Speaker, as we know, the Territory is vast, but the CLP's Rebuilding the Economy strategy and the work our government is doing is lifting up all the regions, whether that be in the top end, the Big Rivers region, East Arnhem, Barkly, or my home of Central Australia. Madam Speaker, the CLP will continue to lift these communities up through our 5 priority sectors. And Madam Speaker, where are our mines located? I listened to the Leader of the Opposition say that we're focused only on Darwin and Palmerston. I don't know of many mines in Darwin and Palmerston, Madam Speaker. Yes, they're definitely not in Parap. They're not in Nightcliff. Sadly, they're not in Grey. They are in our regions, Madam Speaker. And just yesterday, the Minister for Mines and Energy announced that PC Gold floated on the ASX and their capital raising was oversubscribed. That's great news for the Territory. Madam Speaker, this investment is money flowing into the Territory and flowing into our communities, like Pine Creek, which has a population of just over 300 people. This investment also benefits the broader Big Rivers region and Katherine through direct job creation at the mine and indirect work for local suppliers and contractors. Madam Speaker, under our government we also saw the opening of Noble's Knob Gold Mine, the first new mine in Tennant Creek for decades. In the Barkly, more mining projects are set to follow, with Verdant Minerals Amaroo Phosphate Project recently receiving mining authorisation approval, with FID expected in early 2027, and I am working closely with Verdant Minerals to make sure that they can get that project off the ground and start delivering for the Territory and for the country. Exactly, Member for Barkly, the land of opportunity. Central Australia and the Barkly, I'm going to include us in that as well. Madam Speaker, this government is working to make Tennant Creek the mining centre of the Territory, and investors are clamouring to be part of the CLP's new mining age. The first to benefit as more mines open up around our regional centres are regional Territorians. The most recent data shows that mining employs over 6,000 Territorians and is expected to contribute $346 million in royalties to our own source revenue, putting money back into the community for these workers to be supported through stronger services. Madam Speaker, I look forward to seeing our mining industry continue to grow under the leadership of the Minister for Mines and Energies and the royalties that regional communities will be able to benefit from. Madam Speaker, under the CLP, there has clearly been real movement in the mining sector. The Beetaloo will be an economic game changer like we've never seen before. Under our government, investors' interest is growing fast, with international recognition that the Beetaloo is one of the world's largest underdeveloped gas resources, the next big thing, right here in the heart of our Territory's regions. Under the CLP, the Beetaloo is moving forward fast, But under Labor, they couldn't even bring themselves to say the word gas. Madam Speaker, it makes me question whether they even care about regional economic development or if they just want a score on the board. The CLP government is helping drive that success by progressing the Territory Energy Link, which is a critical piece of enabling infrastructure that will unlock this massive economic opportunity. Because as the Beetaloo grows, unless the Energy Link is there, this will become a stranded asset, and we will not let that happen, Madam Speaker. The Territory Energy Link will be a multi-user, multi-asset corridor connecting the Beetaloo sub-basin to the Middle Arm precinct. It's designed to carry gas, fibre optic cable, water, hydrogen and other essential services, laying the foundation for long-term growth. This is not short-sighted, as the opposition says, Madam Speaker. This is long-term future growth and long-term planning. Connecting the Beetaloo to local and international markets will spark major investment, create jobs and secure reliable energy for Territorians. Development linked to the Beetaloo is expected to generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity and thousands of jobs over the coming decades, creating economic value for our regions at a scale that we've not seen before, Madam Speaker. The project is now in its feasibility stage through to late 2026, with an ambitious goal of delivering a development-ready corridor by 2028. Yesterday, the project team delivered a keynote at the Australian Pipeline and Gas Conference, and it's fair to say that the Beetaloo and Territory Energy Link are firmly in the national spotlight, drawing strong attention from the private investors eager to be part of the Territory's energy future. Madam Speaker, that's because these proponents have confidence in our rebuilding the economy strategy and are confident in the CLP government's ability to roll this strategy out. We're actually doing, not just talking, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government is doing the groundwork now by securing early approvals, de-risking the project and making sure the corridor is investment ready so private capital can flow into our regions and opportunity can follow. And our other pillar, Madam Speaker, is tourism. The Territory's regions are clearly seen by international investors as an economic destination of choice. In addition to our mining industry, our tourism industry is also renowned all over the world thanks to Kakadu, which Deloitte estimates has a social value of over $10 billion. Kakadu National Park is a major economic contributor, supporting over 1,280 regional jobs, many of those for Indigenous people, and contributes $136 million to the Australian economy through tourism activity each year. Of course, another international recognised landmark is Uluru, the heart of Australia, which is located at Yalara. Madam Speaker, this is why tourism is one of the key industries under the CLP's Rebuilding the Economy strategy. The Territory's abundant natural capital is an asset to local communities and one they can use to become self-sufficient and forge their own economic futures. There are massive opportunities for Aboriginal economic development through our tourism industry, and with tourism numbers increasing, this government continues to support tourism through infrastructure development and industry development. We can't talk about economic development in our regions without speaking about agriculture. Madam Speaker, the NT's cattle industry makes up 45% of the Territory's land mass. Madam Speaker, if that isn't an industry which is supporting economic development in regions, well then I really don't know what is. And when we talk about the cattle industry, recent figures show that 274,000 head of cattle were exported from the Northern Territory in 2024, compared with 184,000 in 2023. And that's an increase of 89,000 cattle departing out of Port Darwin. And the cattle industry is valued at $1.2 billion. They are staggering numbers, Madam Speaker, and they form part of the backbone of our regions. In the north, we're proudly Asia's food bowl as Australia's largest producers of mangoes and as a major horticultural producer. And when we speak about mangoes, Madam Speaker, As Australia's largest producer, the Northern Territory generates $128 million and accounts for more than 50% of national production, with over 4 million trays annually. They are huge numbers, and we continue to support the mango industry. And of course, our government is helping the industry ramp up to its full potential through growing the Territory's agricultural footprint. And some of the projects include the Gunpoint Emerging Agribusiness Precinct, Ord River Expansion, Wildman Agricultural Development, and the Larrimah Agricultural Development. The CLP is also championing industries that are unique to the Territory, such as crocodile farming, which we spoke about earlier today, which tie into other industries under our strategy, such as tourism. Madam Speaker, no matter where you live, our government is working in partnership with regional communities to boost economic development, boost economic resilience, and permanent jobs that people in the bush can count on. We always used to hear the mantra from the previous Labor government about jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, Madam Speaker, there wasn't that many jobs that were created out there in the region, but there was plenty of debt, I can tell you. But the obvious strength of these industries in our regions is that they are true job creators for their regional towns. The construction industry, which is crucial to delivering the infrastructure these industries rely on to operate, employs almost 11,000 Territorians. Many of these support the foundation needed for economic development. Projects such as the $4 billion remote housing package are a great example of this. Even though those opposite like to harp on about as their special initiative, when it only began rolling out in the 7 last dying weeks of their government. In the last 15 months, Madam Speaker, which has mostly been the time the CLP has been in government, we have delivered 984 bedrooms, a massive contribution to job creation in remote Aboriginal communities and engaging Aboriginal business enterprises with a pipeline of projects so that they can continue to operate for years to come. Madam Speaker, I think the truth hurts, and it surely hurts a little bit more for Labor as they watch the CLP government do everything they failed to do for regional and remote communities. I know the opposition don't like to hear it, but only this government has the seriousness to deliver such life-changing programs for our regions, because it seems Labor weren't serious about doing it. And our other strategic priority of connecting the Territory. The CLP knows that we can't unlock regional growth without connecting our regions, which will then enable us to connect the Territory to the wider world. Under our Rebuilding the Economy strategy, we are laser-focused on developing the trade, export and logistics capabilities we need to become Australia's gateway to Asia and outpace the nation on economic growth. And Minister Carl is doing exceptional work in that space, engaging with our close neighbours in Asia. We reintroduced a Minister for Asian Relations, something that Labor took away. The proposed network, the CLP government is making this possible through the development of our regional logistics hubs across the Territory. The proposed network of regional hubs is backed by the $440 million equity commitment from the Australian government, and I continue to work closely with them to unlock this opportunity for regional investment. These strategic hubs will help the Territory meet growing demand for freight and logistics capacity, driven by both existing and emerging projects. The network will include major hubs, rail siding, spurs and supporting road infrastructure required to underpin the estimated $38 billion in proposed resource developments across our regions. Initial business cases have been developed and identified in the regions, with 3 key hub locations, which I've already spoken about, Catherine, Tanner Creek and Alice Springs. In addition, there is work being done to consider sub-regional hubs, including further economic value for our regions. As some of those mineral resources start developing in some of those other areas in our regions, that is where those smaller hubs will be required to get those resources onto rail and to get them up here to Darwin to port and then off to the world. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is exactly the kind of development that will drive long-term regional jobs, strengthen our supply chains and play a major role in rebuilding the Territory's economy and supporting our regions. The CLP is also making significant investment through our first budget in roads and enabling infrastructure, all of which are, you guessed it, in the regions. Madam Speaker, I've spoken extensively about the roads last week and the importance of investing in Territory roads in the regions. In the CLP 𝒂𝒈𝒂𝒂 government's first budget, we have over 11,000 kilometres of new bitumen on the program. Sorry, 1,100 kilometres. I wish I could do 11,000. That would be wonderful, but I can't afford that much. But 1,100 kilometres of new bitumen on the program, so that as our economy ramps up, industry and local business in the regions can actually hit the road running, Mr Deputy Speaker. The 25-26 budget includes $2 billion in key upgrades for transport infrastructure and priority sections of the road network access, these being the Tanami Road, the Central Arnhem Road, the Carpentaria Highway, the Outback Way, the Sandover Highway, the Buntine and Buchanan Highway, the Mereenie Loop, the Santa Teresa Road, the Arnhem Highway and Kakadu Roads, Tiwi Island Roads, and National Network Highway upgrades. Madam Speaker, Mr Deputy Speaker, every kilometre sealed is another kilometre of opportunity under the CLP. We're delivering these opportunities to more Territorians than ever before. These extensive infrastructure investments across all of our regions will play an important part of rebuilding our economy and create economic value for our regions for many, many years to come. One thing that our regions have in common is that they count construction as a major industry. Our investment in roads, Mr Deputy Speaker, and enabling infrastructure creates economic value for these communities through the local businesses involved in construction and the local businesses who utilise that infrastructure post that completion. One such area, Mr Deputy Speaker, that is crucial to supporting regional economic development is water infrastructure. We all know that water is critical for Territorians across our regions to support livability and to underpin our economic development. In partnership with the Australian Government, this CLP Government is delivering on the Darwin Regional Water Supply Program, which includes the Manton Dam Return to Service and the Adelaide River Off-Stream Water Storage, or ARROS project. The ARROS project is one of the Territory's main strategic infrastructure projects and is rebuilding our economy by securing reliable long-term water supply for the Darwin region and supporting future growth across the top end. The project will harvest and store water in a natural basin near the Adelaide River, with modelling showing it could deliver up to 60 gigalitres each year, almost doubling Darwin's reliable water supply. That means more certainty for households, more certainty for industry and future developments for the greater Darwin-Palmerston region. Mr Deputy Speaker, ARROS is a game changer for the Territory's economy. With secure water comes opportunity, opening the door for new housing, expanded agriculture, industrial growth and emerging industries that depend on reliable water access. The scale of work involved will also create local jobs, boost Territory businesses and attract private investment, delivering long-term benefits that will flow through the economy for many decades to come. And of course, construction for Manton Dam Return to Service is due for completion in 2026. These two projects combined will support 1,000 direct and indirect jobs during the peak of construction and will lay the foundations for a stronger, more resilient and diversified Northern Territory economy, ensuring water security for our growing communities and powering the Territory's next generation of industry. And in Central Australia, Mr Deputy Speaker, My home contributes an estimated $2.9 billion to the Northern Territory's gross state product through mining, tourism, agriculture and defence. And Mr Deputy Speaker, under the CLP strategy, we're keeping the heart of Australia pumping with key investments and incentives. We're bringing the world to Central Australia through our vibrant tourism, and we're exporting the minerals, rare earths and energy that Australia and the rest of the world need. Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm very, very excited about the economic future of Central Australia, with progress being made at Arafura Resources Rare Earths Project and the filming and development and release of the film Kangaroo. Put my hand up, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm yet to see it, but I know that my close colleague, the member for Breitling, has seen it with his family and can't speak highly enough. And with large, visible economic projects, this government is showing Central Australia at its best to international audiences and future travellers and investors. And I'll just touch a little bit further on Nolan's rare earth, Mr Deputy Speaker, and we've just seen this week the signing of the rare earths and minerals deal between Australia and the US. And I've been working with Arafura Resources, I believe, since about 2014 when they first started looking at developing their mine near Aileron. And it's great to see that that project is now moving along and coming up close to final investment decision, and work will commence, because that will benefit our regions and certainly benefit the people of the bush. And I'm working closely with Arafura, and recently on a trip to Canberra, I was putting forward the benefits of Nolan's rare earth and what it can do for Australia overall to the Treasurer in Canberra. And I'm glad to see now that that agreement has been struck between Australia and the US, and it really cements this project and what it means, of course, not for just our region of Central Australia and the Northern Territory, but also for Australia and our allies. But, Mr Deputy Speaker, we're also moving to make Alice Springs more livable and to provide a strong economic foundation in our year of action, certainty and security. And there are a number of projects coming up in Alice Springs. The Stewart Highway Swartz Crescent intersection upgrade, something that had been sitting on the papers under Labor for years and years and years, and they didn't actually push to get this done. Well, the member for Breitling and I and the Speaker live in Alice Springs. We know the importance of that intersection. So we pushed to get that done, something that Labor failed to do. We're delivering on the Gillen Oval Multi-Sports Precinct, and work will commence on that next year. The planning is done and work will be commencing very soon. The new lighting for 𝒂𝒐𝒏𝒔 Oval, I believe, is well underway. And of course the new Multicultural Centre, again, that the planning has been done and work will commence on its construction next year as well. Our government is also investing $11 million in headworks infrastructure and subdivision to support the development of residential land at Kilgariff, so that more people could come to Alice Springs as we grow and contribute to our region. Mr Deputy Speaker, as a local member, I'm really excited to see these projects getting off the ground in Central Australia. We've been waiting for far too long. We have been underinvested in by Labor for 8 long years. Excuse me, Mr Deputy Speaker. And as I mentioned, tourism continues to be front and centre for Central Australia, and that's because of the amazing visitor experience we offer on the ground. We've allocated $4.8 million towards a new Tourism Central Australia headquarters and visitor information centre, and we continue to support major events drawing in crowds from around the world, such as the Parcham Light Festival, which was developed and instigated by the CLP way back in the day. The Field of Light installation at Uluru, which I'm very proud to say that when I was working with Corrections, we played a large part in the development and installation of that project. And of course, the Desert Mob Festival. The CLP have invested $5.5 million for a new multi-day walking track in the stunning Wataka National Park, home to Kings Canyon, and will continue to invest in local amenities to attract visitors to Catajuda, Kings Canyon, Uluru and the Western McDonnell Ranges. And while I'm on my feet, Mr Deputy, could I request an extension of time?
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And of course, while I'm speaking of tourism, it is an absolute fundamental pillar of our Northern Territory economy and a significant industry throughout our regions. And in financial year 2024, the sector accounted for 3.7% of our gross domestic product and 5.1% of total employment and around about 8,000 jobs. And we will also talk about our regions as well. We can't forget defence. Whilst we have Larrakia here in town and you have Robbo Barracks on the edges of Palmerston, the rest of the defence sector is out in our regions. And we've seen the announcement today of that huge investment in a firing range, of course, in our regions, and the investment that's taking place in Katherine through Tyndall. And defence effectively accounts for around 10.2% of the Northern Territory's economy. And this is supporting job creation and population growth and a more diversified local industry due to several redevelopments and construction activities. And this is great to see, Mr Deputy Speaker, and this work is happening in the regions. And it's something that I never heard anyone from Labor speak about. But we are working closely with Defence, and we're specifically working closely with the federal government because we understand the need for defence in the Northern Territory. We understand our strategic location in Australia as far as defence of this country goes. But, Mr Deputy Speaker, to the Territorians who live outside Darwin and want to know what they want to know that their government is supporting the economic development of the regions they call home, I want to make this absolutely abundantly clear. The CLP government inherited chaos with years of Labor, neglect, waste and poor planning that left Territorians burdened with debt and stalled growth. With an economy in shambles, it was certainly clear that Labor had no plan to deliver for the Territory. And that can be seen by the $1.4 billion black hole we found when coming into government. All of those unfunded liabilities and, of course, ongoing projects that were not costed into the future. And Labor were just going to continue racking this up on the credit card. Well, Mr Deputy Speaker, through our first year in government, the CLP have turned the Territory's economy around, leading the nation in annual economic growth at 10.2%. We've achieved this by taking a hard look at the budget and the infrastructure program to make sure that the Territorians are finally getting value for money and supporting the industries that would then support Territorians. Mr Deputy Speaker, we've brought discipline back. We're investing in projects that can be delivered, that add real value for Territorians across the Territory. And importantly, Mr Deputy Speaker, that they create the environment for investors in our key industries to want to do business here in the Northern Territory. The CLP is focused on playing to the Territory's natural strengths, our resources, our defence industries, agriculture and tourism. Mr Deputy Speaker, these are the sectors that are key to driving jobs, attracting new capital and growing a stronger and more self-reliant economy. Our government has acted on our mandate to reduce red tape, and we're ensuring that the Territory is viewed as the place that business want to invest in and a place that people want to call home. Our Rebuilding the Economy strategy does all of that and more, Mr Deputy Speaker. As the CLP continues to rebuild our economy, help create thousands of jobs and make the Territory the best place to do business, we continue to rebuild the regions and create economic value for the people right across the Territory, Mr Deputy Speaker. Mr Deputy Speaker, the CLP just doesn't recognise the role our regions play in developing the Territory economy. Under our rebuilding the economy strategy, the regions take centre stage because our government recognises their value and potential, and they have been far too long left out of the discussion under the previous Labor government, Mr Deputy Speaker. The CLP government will continue backing in our regions, continue backing in the people in our regions, because we understand that they are the heart of growing our economy into the future. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Member for 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I do acknowledge the contribution made. Member for Katherine, you might not want to go out because there'll be no quorum after then. So, all right, I'll call a quorum, Mr Speaker. The government don't want to hear to the opposition.
Where's the opposition?
Right here. You're looking at him. Who? Well, have a look. Open your eyes.
Member for 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄, the clerk informs me there's 10 anyway, so we can continue.
Yeah, no, it's good. I do take note that the member for Katherine did run back in to maintain the quorum. So thank you very much, member for Katherine. I respect you.
Point of order.
Mr Deputy Speaker, standing on the continued interjection from the member for 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄 and member for Katherine. The member for 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄 hasn't even got... member for 𝒂𝒑...
Sit down, please.
He hasn't even got any...
Sit down, please, member for Daly. I asked you to sit down. Take your seat.
You can't yell at me.
Take your seat, please. Member for 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄, you've been talking directly across to the member for Katherine. You please direct your comments through the chair. There is a quorum. Continue with your speech and no interruptions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I acknowledge the member for Katherine for coming back in and maintaining the quorum while her government's numbers are low because they've all walked out. Now, we are talking about something incredibly important. We are talking about economic development, and particularly my contribution is going to be about regional economic development because it is incredibly important. And so we begin this discussion or debate tonight talking about the regions. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, I represent the Northern Territory's largest electorate in the Northern Territory, over 457,000 square kilometres from the South Australian border, NT border, the entire length of the NT-WA border, right up just shy of the Victoria River. So I represent many of the amazing communities, my electorate in particular, the top communities of the electorate, Ammanbidgee, Dargaragu, Kalgarigi, Bullercamp, Timber Creek, right down to Kurukujara and Murrajulu communities on the South Australian NT border. And as we talk about the regions, let us all take a moment to just acknowledge that the Northern Territory's regions are the powerhouses of the Northern Territory. Much of the economic activity that is seen, produced, manufactured and created in our larger regional towns and cities actually comes from the remote regions of the Northern Territory. Our regions are rich in culture, innovation and opportunity, Mr Speaker. The Territory's future success depends on full economic inclusion and participation of Aboriginal Territorians. We cannot leave the bush behind. We must invest in the bush to build the Territory's future, creating jobs, supporting enterprise and building stronger, safer and more sustainable communities. Every community deserves the opportunity to grow, to lead and to share in the prosperity of our economy and to make real progress, and that means working together to ensure no one is left behind. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, I think when we all talk in this parliament, we all do interpret things differently and we come from a different perspective or point of view. But I think for me, Mr Deputy Speaker, when we talk about regional economic development, I see that as a means of helping communities outside of our major cities and our regional towns. It's about remote communities and regional communities growing their local economies in ways that does create jobs, strengthens industries and improves the quality of life for residents in regional remote areas of the Northern Territory. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, in simple terms, it's about making sure that every part of the Territory, not just the top end, gets a chance to thrive in the economy. And it's, you know, I guess it's a topic that we need to kind of talk about more than just policy. We need to talk about what and how it works in practice. So regional economic development is the process of building up the economy, resilience and regional and remote areas through investment in infrastructure, local business support, training and community-led growth. Now, I think it is important as well to just acknowledge that, yes, regional economic development is important, but I am going to steal tonight the same line of positioning that the member for Fong Lim talks about as well, because economy is great, but you need population growth as well to stimulate and actually grow the economy, because the more people you have, the more opportunity you have at growing the workforce, at returning investment back into local communities, and that's what we need to see as well. Regional economic development is not just about building physical infrastructure projects, it's about building local communities socially and economically so that people relocate to regional places. We want to see Central Australia grow. The Northern Territory Treasurer, who says he's a proud Central Australian, who talks about building the Territory economy strategy that he's released, Mr Deputy Speaker, do you know how many times that strategy mentions Central Australia? 0. Not once does the strategy actually talk about Central Australia and growing the economy there. That is really disappointing. As a fellow Central Australian myself, I certainly want to hear what the government's plans are for Central Australia, because it is important. When we talk about it, the government talk about projects that have been long-term projects before their government, and some of those even before the previous government. Projects do take time to go through the due diligence, the checks and balances, the consultations, the approvals, important. But this government has not given us a single additional new project for Central Australia. So that lacks an economic vision for our region. The Chief Minister and the Treasurer woke up one morning and said, we're going to play a game with the Commonwealth Government and we're going to throw threats around, reducing and cutting the funding for the National Aboriginal Art Gallery of Australia, the 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒂. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, you know and I know you don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to do this. As a cabinet, you need to be fiscally responsible and you need to talk about what that means and where the money's going. So this was an opportunity for the Northern Territory's Treasurer to actually stand up and say, we're not going to do that project, and that's fine. That's that government's prerogative. But this is where we're going to invest that money, the Territory government's contribution, into the local economy. But when I've been home over the weekends in Alice Springs, following that announcement, we've not actually heard a single project that the Territory's Treasurer, who is from Alice Springs, has spoken about where that money could go. Now, I've been the first to put my hand up and say that should go to things like Araluan Art Centre's refurbishment and renovation, moving the Museum of Central Australia out to the Desert Park, a new exhibition at Strello. Because while people will say, oh, they're not economic, they are. They create jobs in our local economy for our amazing hard-working tradies in Central Australia who do a brilliant job. They create the opportunity for our creative community to come together to look at what those installations will look like, how they'll work, and that's economic opportunity. That's economic prosperity for Central Australia. But still, we don't hear from the Treasurer what that money is going to. We don't even have a commitment from this government that that money is absolutely 100% going to stay in Central Australia, Mr Speaker. So this is an opportunity for the government tonight to really talk about making sure that Central Australia is not left behind, and give the Treasurer the opportunity to maybe actually put Central Australia in rebuilding the Territory's economy strategy to send a message to Central Australia that we're not going to be left behind. We heard when the CLP were in opposition, the member for Barkly, the Barkly Bull, always talking and getting selfies at the Birramah line. Well, it appears that this member for Barkly has forgotten those photos and that hard line about defending the regions, because it seems since he's crossed that Birramah line and he's sitting in that flash office on that comfy chair, he's forgotten the good people of Barkly and their need to have investment, because Tennant Creek is not mentioned in the economic rebuilding the Territory's economy strategy either. We do need to make sure that investment happens below the Birrama line, because a good chunk of the Territory's population lives below the Birrama line, Mr Speaker. Every region, from Alice Springs to Yuendamu to Yirrkala, Kalgoorlie to Kintore to Alikurung, all our communities deserve to see incredible investments that will grow projects, that will grow communities, to make sure that our communities are thriving, that there are strong investments, Mr Speaker. The regions of the Northern Territory, despite what you'll hear, they're not just places for extraction of minerals. That is an important industry, absolutely acknowledge that. But these regions are also home to some of the Territory's most amazing artists, some of the most vibrant and successful tourism operators you will ever meet. Health, education, housing, aged care, disability, essential services. All of these industries drive economic opportunities in the regions, and this is an opportunity for us to continue to do more work in that space. Central Australia does contribute over $2.9 billion into the Territory's economy. And I absolutely want to acknowledge that my region in particular, the Great Electorate of Gwadja, is home to many economic generators. We are home to 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄 National Park, one of the, if not the most prestigious place in the Northern Territory, telling important stories of First Nations, Aboriginal Territorians, talking about their 𝑬𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒐𝒎𝒊𝒄, inviting tourists to come in, see it and celebrate it. It is a joint managed national park. Aboriginal people working side by side with Parks Australia to deliver amazing opportunities. The Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation have run that for some time, making sure that we can grow jobs for local people in that community. And I am very proud that I will be going down on this weekend to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Uluru being handed back to the rightful owners, the Aboriginal, the Anangu people of that region. And let's remember, it was 40 years ago that the very government, the CLP government, were protesting the handback of 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄 National Park, saying that it belonged to everyone. This is an opportunity. I look forward to seeing the CLP members down at 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄 to actually support Aboriginal tourism, to support Aboriginal economic development happening on their land, in their land. Now we move across. My electorate, the electorate of Gwadja, is also home to the mighty granites. The Tanami Newmont gold mine, the Granites gold mine, home to one of Australia's largest gold mines in the Northern Territory and in Australia, and probably in the world, Mr Deputy Speaker. Now, I've been out many times. I've met with the local community. I've met with the hard-working organisations and companies that do the work out there. And I want to acknowledge that this is an important project as well, where it's about growing the Territory's economy. And they've had a commitment with the Yapa crew, which went from 2 people, years ago, to a large workforce now of Yapa Aboriginal people from Yuendamu community who are participating in that important project. And it is growing. It is important to absolutely see that work moving forward. There are projects right across the Territory that we do need to get in and invest in. The Northern Territory's Tourism Minister speaks about needing to change the way we do things in the Northern Territory, and I'm not disagreeing with her. I actually agree with some of the things she says sometimes might come as a surprise to some people. But I think that we shouldn't actually have aside an Aboriginal Tourism Committee. The actual Tourism Committee of the Northern Territory should be heavily dominated by Aboriginal Territorians, because we come here for an Aboriginal experience, many tourists who come to the Northern Territory. And I have great organisations and local businesses who have stepped up, and they are starting their tourism businesses, and they may have been in for a couple of years now. They may have had to make some changes during COVID days, Mr Deputy Speaker, but they are continuing to do the important work. We need to look at how we work with and better engage in our remote communities. So much of the Northern Territory is Aboriginal land. and it absolutely should be, and it should continue to be celebrated and continue to be respected. Aboriginal land is not, and I want to say this again, Aboriginal land does not mean that there is no opportunity for economic development on that land. It means that we need to sit down in the dirt, get dirty, build relationships, listen to people firsthand about what the economic opportunities and the projects are that people want to see on their country. Because when I travel the Northern Territory, and I spend a lot of time, probably like the members for Mulka, Daly, Arnhem, Arafura and Barkly, when we get out, we cover lots of kilometres and we hear from Territorians left, right and centre. And we often hear lots of people in remote communities talking about economic development opportunities, and there are so many. Now, I just wanted to touch on as well, when you talk about Central Australia, it is not a barren, hot wasteland. It is an amazing place of opportunity. It is an oasis in the desert. There are so many good things that happen there. Now, when you talk about agriculture, absolutely incredible industry and contributing significantly to the Northern Territory. In Central Australia alone, Mr Deputy Speaker, you may or may not be surprised, but Central Australia produces, I think it is a third of Australia's melons. So watermelons, honeydews, rock melons is produced in the member for Barkly, I reckons, electorate. I'm getting a good nod there. We all love a good melon. So, you know, this is an amazing opportunity that's happening in the Northern Territory, in that community. You look at the work being done by Centre Farm, the trials around onion and garlic to be grown in the Northern Territory. Again, looking over, I think that's the claim is going to be the member for Barkly. But down in the southern region, certainly we've had over the years people growing lucerne and sorghum. Again, produce, food for cattle and horses, livestock. You know, you travel up the road again and you get to my family's property up in Tea Tree, and they grow mangoes. And they have produced mangoes and grapes for many years. Back in the day, they used to have a mango wine. I think it was called Mango Madness. It wasn't too bad. But, you know, these are opportunities that we see. There is actually a really exciting economic opportunity in the Territory, which I think we all need to get on board with, and that is growing the Northern Territory's bush foods industry. Because the Northern Territory is home to some of this country's most strongest superfoods in the nation. Solanum centrale is also known as the bush tomato or desert raisin. It's a superfood. People pay significant money per kilo of the bush tomato or the desert raisin because it is so high in antioxidants. So there is a real opportunity here to work with the Territory and the federal government around growing the Territory's bush foods industry so that we can see it go from being where it is now to being a project on a national and international scale that we can keep up with the demand to get that food to market. And it would be remiss of me while talking about that to not acknowledge the amazing work of great Central Australians like Raylene Brown, who has been a champion for bush foods for decades. Josie Douglas, who worked on a bush foods project, and Dr. Fiona Davis as well, who worked on a bush foods project around growing the Territory's economy in that space. These are all amazing industries that we can grow. And then, of course, we need to look at our remote communities, and we need to look at what opportunities are there that we are not seeing at the moment. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, we do travel, as I've said, all of the bush members, regardless of their political persuasion. We get out, we talk to people, we understand, and often we can see the opportunities that are ripe for the picking. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm going to ask for Standing Order 43 while I'm on my feet. I've got a few more things to say.
Is an extension granted? I think the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I won't actually be too long, famous last words, but I just wanted to say, I think as well, when we talk about remote communities, we also have this resource that is currently not actually seen as an important resource or a valuable commodity, and it's wastewater. In our remote communities, we have, big sewage ponds. Now, we could be turning this water into grey water, into recycled water, not necessarily directly for human consumption, but we could be using this to turn it into an agricultural resource, to grow citrus, to grow bush foods, to grow or green our remote communities, to make life more livable for our brothers and sisters in the bush. I think if we could recycle water to green ovals, to plant trees, that's an investment for the local community, but suddenly you're creating a workforce as well, because suddenly you then have groundsmen, you've got nurseries, you've got people running those events in those local communities. Or you can turn the water into a valuable commodity that can be used to grow things. We could be working, and remote communities could be using that resource themselves, or they could be trading it off to the local pastoralists nearby to use to water paddocks, to grow, pastures, to keep the food green for people. I think there are amazing opportunities, but the end of the narrative here is the future of the Northern Territory's economic prosperity lies in the hands of Indigenous economic participation and co-development. We need to work together because the regions hold the success of all of us. When our regions survive and thrive, our territory thrives and survives. Our capital cities flourish, our towns flourish. The economics go hand in hand. We always talk about when you lift people up out of poverty and you give them the opportunity to have a rewarding and empowering and life-changing job, they suddenly start contributing more into their own local community. They start spending more at the shop. They start spending more of buying white goods or furniture, of all of these things. It's really, really important. When we had COVID, there was this false narrative being peddled that an increase in social welfare meant an increase in alcohol. Now, that didn't stack up and doesn't stack up entirely, Mr Deputy Speaker, because if you look at the data from Outback stores and you talk to Outback stores, they'll tell you, no, we had a significant increase in fruit and vegetable increases, white goods, people buying fridges, washing machines, clothes, all of those things. When we provide the opportunity for economic development to give real jobs to people in the bush, we start to see our economy growing and shaping and delivering for everyone. Now, we do continue to see the investment from the Commonwealth Government, from Mullendeary McCarthy and Marion Scrimgeour, both proud Central Australians, when they talk about the real jobs. And that is an initiative being run about giving real jobs, real wages, real conditions. So people living in the bush don't have to spend a life on welfare, not on CDP, real wages, real conditions. So that's leave entitlements, that's sick leave, superannuation. These are all things that people in the bush deserve. These are things that we need to see. When you look at the ranger programs, now the government has cut ranger funding, but when you look at ranger programs when they first started out, it was seen as a program to supplement and support community development. But we're able to measure the economic value of that today and see that that has provided meaningful employment for people, a reason for people to get up every morning, to work for their communities, to continue caring for country, to actually be able to get a wage, to support their families, to support their own goals, their own aspirations. We need to roll out more projects that create jobs in remote communities. It's not just always about infrastructure in communities. It's about job creating projects for people to give them the opportunities. It's also not about just setting up projects that happen out in the regions and it's just it's extracting something and taking it somewhere else. Alice Springs has the opportunity to also become the country's, renewable energy recycler. What do we do with solar panels when they're past their life, Mr. Deputy Speaker? Quite often, we send them overseas. There are very few companies in Australia who actually do the disassembling and the recycling. Imagine if we were able to create that industry in Central Australia and get people together to do that important work. This is what we do need to see. What is the top 3 economic drivers for Central Australia for the next 3 to 5 to 10 years by this government? And we cannot just be told that they're going to be existing projects. I am not claiming that any of those existing projects are solely ours, because there are some that were there before the previous government was in. They had to go through that process. But we do need to have a pipeline of projects, of conceptions, of economic matters to talk about, so that we can, Mr. Deputy Speaker, make sure that Alice Springs does not dry up, because it is an amazing place. Central Australia is amazing. The more economic opportunity we create in the bush, the more opportunity we give for our countrymen to stay in their own community. When I hear about my young nephews and nieces coming back from Cairns or from Unity and Murray Bridge, and they finish their Year 12, most of them want to go back and they want to work in their community. And it's about making sure that we create these economic opportunities for our young ones to go back and work in their community. An economic driver in a remote community as well is childcare. Let's open up more childcare in our community, because when I talk to my sisters, my mums, my aunties, my grandmothers, my wives, in the cultural sense, they all say, Japananga, I can't work because I don't have anywhere to put my young one when I want to go and work at the shop. Childcare would also create positions, create jobs for people in those remote communities to be the caregiver of kids in remote communities while others do go to work. So I think the important thing tonight is, when we're talking about economic development and what does it actually mean, how does it work? Well, it's more than just capital infrastructure. It's more than resources. Resources, absolutely acknowledge, major part of the territory's economy and will be for some time. And everyone in this chamber acknowledges that, I believe. But we do need to see other investments. I would like to see the government commit to rolling out infrastructure investments and investments in the arts. The previous government had the arts trails, where we worked to do significant capital infrastructure, upgrading community art centres to then encourage more of our local artists to come into those. Now, we haven't seen a single initiative roll out under this new government that actually goes to supporting arts, other than maintaining the funding that's already there. Economic driver is major events and festivals. Get behind the major events and festivals. Don't shift the National Indigenous Music Awards over to the Community Benefit Fund and say it's their responsibility. Don't tell them, hey, you have to keep applying. They used to have a 5-year funding agreement. Give them that so that they can continue to advocate and bring people to the territory. These events, support remote community events and festivals. Get behind events like the Kalgoorlie Freedom Day Festival, like Barunga, like the events that unfold in the Mulka electorate and the Daly electorate and the Barkly electorate. These events are lifelines for regional and remote centres. Every time we have a major event or festival in a local community, in a regional community, and in a remote community, the return on investment is huge. Families decide to go and visit one another. People go, hey, I've never been there, I'm going to go and check out this amazing community. Communities get to showcase their local place, and the return on investment is huge. We should be doing things like this. The CLP should look at what other major events can we do in Alice Springs. Should we bring back a big rodeo or a bushman's carnival or something in Alice Springs? That will bring thousands of people to Central Australia. That was, these are ideas that bring investment. So we do need to talk about it. What does that mean? No region should be left behind. We should have major events and festivals in every region. Give people the lead-in time, the organisation. That means jobs. The celebration. That means jobs. Showcasing the Northern Territory. When we do that, when every member of this parliament stops talking the territory down, we grow the economy because we sell the territory. We tell people to come to the territory. We tell people the territory, yes, it's open for business, but it's also open for you to come and have the most amazing, life-changing cultural experience with Aboriginal people. So let's stop demonising Aboriginal people. Let's start celebrating them and their opportunities to the territory's economy.
Thank you, Member for 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄. Member for Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I thank Member for Annam for bringing forward a discussion about the economic value of the regions. As the Minister for People, Sport and Culture, this is an important discussion about the regions that my portfolios play a critical role in. The regions are the backbone of the Northern Territory economy and the heart of our territory lifestyle. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I spoke in this House yesterday regarding the 3 key pillars, and I will say it again: reduce crime, rebuild economy, and restore the territory lifestyle. The 2025-26 infrastructure program demonstrates this government's clear commitment to regional development, with $247.3 million allocated to construct and upgrade arts, recreation, and park facilities. An investment that grows to $270.6 million when capital grants are included. In Alice Springs, we are backing infrastructure priorities with $168.7 million for projects including a multi-sports precinct in Gillen, repairs and re-establishment of Anzac Oval, an upgraded visitor information centre, and support for the Alice Springs Library and a new multicultural centre. Noting that this includes the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Art Gallery of Australia. Now, of course, we know that work has to be done to reset following the news of 𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒔, and I'm sure that there will be more to say on this in future. As the Minister for People, Sport and Culture, my department delivers and manages infrastructure in partnership with the Department of Logistics and Infrastructure, local governments, regional councils, and other key stakeholders. The department's total capital budget for 2025-26 is $34.9 million, which includes $13.4 million in capital major works and $9.8 million in capital grants. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am proud to hold portfolios that expand across the whole of the Northern Territory and impact the lives of all Territorians, whether that be our seniors, our migrants, our artists, athletes, veterans, members of the LGBTQI+ community, or those Territorians living with a disability. So I welcome the opportunity to outline how we are delivering for every region, ensuring every community can play its part in growing the territory economy. Before I start, I want to let everyone know that my department manages 50 facilities. From TIO Stadium to Aralian Homestead, they know a lot about regional facilities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to turn to sport and active communities. Earlier this year, along with the member for Katherine, I was pleased to announce a $1 million infrastructure investment to the Katherine Country Club to deliver a new all-weather multi-sport facility which will support community connection and healthy, active lifestyles year-round. I'm not sure I have heard the Leader of the Opposition welcome this announcement, but I'm sure she will join the member for Katherine at some stage in enjoying this facility when it opens. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, while the opposition might prefer the big, shiny Santa Claus projects, as Chief Minister so aptly put it yesterday, this government is focused on projects that make a real difference to everyday Territorians in our regions. Many residents of regional and remote communities, including traditional owners and Aboriginal Territorians, want to see their communities prosper, create jobs, and build economic resilience. That's exactly what our Restoring the Territory Lifestyle strategy is about, delivering better infrastructure for an active, healthy territory, and it's delivering results. We will both establish, upgrade, and improving sports and recreation facilities to increase participation by all ages and abilities. Before I go any further, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to mention the $1 million lighting investment at Nobuilt Oval. I know the member for Nelson and member for Goida are beyond excited for this Saturday night to watch the Crocs under lights for the first time. It's the same feeling that Central Australians have when they ran back onto the Anzac Oval for the first time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the town rejoiced, and that's impacting on multiple sporting communities, including rugby league, rugby union, and football, or soccer for some. Mr. Deputy Speaker, while talking about Alice Springs, let me add the commitment of our government has made to the Gillen Oval Sports Precinct. It will feature multi-purpose fields, new change rooms, spectator areas, and car parking right next to Centralian Middle School. That's in addition to the $1.4 million plan to upgrade field lighting nearby Jim McConville Oval, enabling year-round participation. And while it is all good and well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to create sporting facilities, they are no use if they are not used. That's why it was the CLP government that introduced the Sport Voucher Scheme so many years ago, ensuring young Territorians can participate regardless of cost barriers. I am pleased to provide an update that to date, 6,632 sports vouchers have been redeemed. In Darwin, $381,269. In Palmerston region, $161,500. In Alice Springs, $57,200. Litchfield, $48,700. Catherine, $10,300. Nullumboy, $4,000. And to preempt the inevitable question from the member for Backley, yes, Tennant Creek is included, with $430,564 allocated to the Barkly Regional Council to support local programs under the Active Regional and Remote Communities Program, a $4.1 million territory-wide investment. This program funds council across the Northern Territory to deliver inclusive, safe, and community-driven recreation opportunities because we know participation builds both health and the economy. In turning to multicultural affairs, Mr. Deputy Speaker, inclusive infrastructure also means spaces that bring people together. Creating inclusive and accessible public spaces for use by multicultural and community groups is a key strategic priority for our government. A great example is our commitment to new multicultural centers in both Catherine and Alice Springs. We are in the process of working with my department on the current Northern Territory government-owned assets in Catherine to assess our options for upgrades to include a multicultural center with $1.5 million allocated in our budget. I hope to be able to say more soon, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In Alice Springs, a scope of procurement is currently being prepared for the design tender for the new multicultural facility in Alice Springs, which is a $5 million investment from the CLP government. I know the member for Namatjira and member for Braidlin are looking forward to this project getting underway shortly. This is also a commitment to fast-track the release. There is also a commitment to fast-track the release of land for multicultural groups who want to build new cultural centers and places of worship. We made a commitment to invest $1 million towards a new multicultural community facilities grant program. The program will provide support to multicultural community organizations to improve their existing facilities with a dollar-for-dollar contribution capped at $50,000 per applicant. That's local investment, creating local jobs and local pride. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I turn my attention to arts and culture now. I have spent so much time visiting art galleries, and I'm making my way around the territory and looking forward to visiting more communities to see this fantastic work. I spoke about the opening of 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒄 and Catherine during last sittings, and only in recent weeks had the pleasure of visiting Gunbalania and Injalak Arts and Crafts Center. Support of the arts is why this government has invested $7.93 million in the 2025-26 Arts Grant Program and $30.45 million to support upgrades and expansions to galleries and cultural centers across our regions. This includes arts venues and facilities investment to ensure key arts venues remain affordable, accessible, and professionally managed, enabling artistic development, cultural participation, and creative enterprise. These include Nikaninu Art and Cultural Center in Tennant Creek, $10 million to upgrades is currently completed, and we're just waiting for an official opening ceremony to be held. Mimi Aboriginal Art and Craft Gallery in Catherine, $2.843 million. Godinman Ijad Rewards Arts and Culture Center, $7.6 million, which was officially opened in April 2025, where I was able to attend that along with member for Catherine. Injalak Arts and Crafts Center in Gunbalania, $1 million. Bukkulane Malka Center in Yekala, $2.5 million, and works currently continuing. Gapuvia Culture and Arts Center, $2 million from Northern Territory Government and $8.5 million from NIAA, and that was officially opened in August 2025, which I was able to attend that official opening ceremony as well. Maningrida Arts and Cultural Center, $4.5 million allocation, and tenders is currently under assessment. Each of these projects represents jobs, training, tourism, and cultural pride. Through the Accessible Australia initiative, we are expanding the Changing Places program, delivering fully accessible facilities in national parks, beaches, and portable locations. This program, running through to 2028, is currently 100% funded for eligible infrastructure and already attracting strong interest from councils and agencies. That's what inclusion looks like. Removing barriers so every Territorian can participate fully in community life. When it comes to seniors and youth, removing barriers to participation to allow for community activity is also highlighted in our many programs. For development and economic growth, we need people to choose the territory as their home. That's why it's important that we are looking after our next generation of Territorians, our youth. Our Regional Youth Services Program includes funding for 6 regionally based coordinator positions in Alice Springs, Darwin, Palmerston, Catherine, Tennant Creek, and East Annam. We also invested $6.8 million in 2024-25 in core after-hours services, regional youth activities, and youth engagement grants. Madam Speaker, let us not forget our seniors. They play an enormous role in supporting families, caring for grandchildren, volunteering in community groups, and keeping our cultural traditions alive. This unpaid contribution underpins much of our economy and makes the NT such a strong, connected place. Madam Speaker, investment as defined by the motion is clearly not just in built infrastructure. It is inherently investment in people. To this end, the Northern Territory Concession Scheme provides concessions on a range of essential goods and services to help with living expenses. Essential goods and services you can receive a concession on includes council rates and garbage services, electricity, water and sewerage, NT driver license and vehicle registration, and spectacles. In 2024-25, the total NT concession scheme expenditure was $19.5 million. Finally, Madam Speaker, our regional economies are strengthened by those who have served our country, our veterans. From Catherine to Alice, Tennant Creek to Palmerston, we are working with ex-service organizations and local councils to ensure facilities meet the needs of veterans and their families, recognizing their contribution to our community fabric. And Madam Speaker, when it comes to the Scott Palmer Center, I'm still waiting for an update from the federal government, as they have been working along with the DVA and one of the non-governmental organization group in Darwin. I'm hoping to hear some good news soon, as this has been going on for many years now. Madam Speaker, we know that the success of the Northern Territory economy depends on the strength of our regions, whether it's arts, sport, multiculturalism, disability inclusion, or veteran support. These are not isolated programs. Together they form the social and economic infrastructure that keeps our territory strong. While others may chase grand plans and photo ops, this government is getting on with the job, investing where it matters most, in people, in communities, and in our regions. That's how we grow the territory together. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Mulka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak on the motion brought by the opposition leader, and I thank her for bringing the motion today. As the regional hub town of Nhulunbuy moves forwards towards an end date of mining, there is much need for support from both the NT and federal government for the communities in the Gove region. I am aware that the township of 𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒔 has also been through this transition, and support from all layers of government. Nhulunbuy is quite a bit bigger than 𝒄𝒏𝒔 and a lot further from Darwin. It has become a regional hub of northeast Arnhem Land with a large hospital, many services, industrial centre, and many businesses that service the region. The loss of the mining industry is significant, and it will be very important for governments to provide ongoing support for the region and ensure that health services and all of the businesses and services that provide critical support for the region can be maintained. It is very easy for government to say that it's a mining town and ignore some of the issues that are experienced in the region. But it makes economic sense to support this regional hub and to continue. Without Nhulunbuy, the pressure that would be added to Darwin Hospital's businesses and services, and increase of people having to travel into or inside in Darwin would significantly increase. We know that public housing in Darwin is already overcrowded, and this brings significant problems. I also know that many people come to Darwin and get stuck here for periods of time without transport to get home. Nhulunbuy has historically been a Balanda town, but today there are more Yolngu also living in town. Many Balanda have come to go and lived for generations. Grandparents, kids, and grandkids all living in East Arnhem Land. A lot of people are adopted by Yolngu to become a family and have respect for language, culture, and diversity. Many of these people are the business people, the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the pilots, mechanics, and tradespeople of the region. Many work with the services that support the CDP programs, homeland programs, and other support services. These people often call Northeast Arnhem Land home for many years, and they experience the hardship of living in a remote region. The high cost of living, high fuel prices, and very high cost of flights. Previously, I have asked the Labor government to look at whether flight subsidies should be applied to remote and regional areas. The Queensland government have this system in place for their remote residents. Through correspondence with the Federal Minister for Transport, Minister King, I understand that the Productivity Commission will soon begin an investigation into remote air travel and make recommendations to improve the remote situation. It is important that all levels of government are working on these regional issues. Madam Speaker, I believe there might be approximately 3 to 5 years left before the closure of the mine, and many of the people who own houses and businesses and are invested in the region feel concerned. I have had people contacting my office asking me what is happening, and the answer is that I don't know. Just like everyone else, I have no certainty of the plans for Nhulunbuy. The 𝒂𝒐𝒏𝒔 reference group have a very good website, but this year there have been no meetings for the community to ask questions or obtain information. I have asked Rio Tinto and Department of the Chief Minister to try and hold a meeting before the end of the year with the 𝒂𝒐 community. I have raised concerns with these parties that the decisions and consultations about the transition of Nhulunbuy needs to include all clans of the 𝒂𝒐 Peninsula. Right now, the majority of consultation happens with the two corporations that are connected to the 𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒔 and 𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒔 clans. Traditionally, the NLC has said that these two clans are the TOs of the 𝒂𝒐 Peninsula, but there has long been contested by other clans in the region. Currently, native title applications for the region are being submitted to and being heard, and there are multiple parties to this application process. I hope that these clans can work together to reach agreement about land ownership for the region. For this reason, it is important that all clans and traditional decision-making processes are included in the decisions about the future of the region. because we assume that a new lease in the region will be with us for a long time. It is important that we don't lay a foundation that is unstable, because it will create problems long into the future. I have raised these concerns over many years in briefings with the Department of Chief Minister and in meetings with Rio Tinto, who both sit on the Go Peninsula Future Reference Group. This group also consists of the 𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒔 Corporation and the 𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒔 Corporation, but should ensure to include other clan leaders from across the region who may want to participate. Many clans do not have funded corporations, and for this reason, may not easily engage in the early negotiations processes. Instead, it is important to seek the clan leaders out and ensure that they are part of the decision-making processes. Madam Speaker, it is also very important that we ensure that there are no environmental legacy mine issues when Rio leaves. Community members have raised many concerns with me about this, and I think it's important that the government makes sure that the mine is held to account. We must ensure there is a robust plan in place. This was being discussed on ABC radio this morning, and Dave Mitchell, who has lived in Go for many decades, is pushing for the mine to train young people to take on the job environmental responsibility and rehabilitation. And this is important, that we look at the opportunities that young people in Go and find the employment and training pathways that are needed into the future. Madam Speaker, many people call Nhulunbuy home. It is a very special place with a strong sense of community. It is a meeting place for many cultures. In July, I attended the citizenship ceremony at the town hall. There were people from many cultures joining with us to live on Yolngu country. And we welcome people who come to our country with open hearts. Nhulunbuy is a place where kids can grow up in a bush environment. There are many sporting groups, the golf club, football teams, and strong art community. It is not just a mining town. It is a Northern Territory community. and we need to have a strong support from the NT government to ensure that it has a sustainable future. Madam Speaker, the Aboriginal communities and homelands in my electorate also want to be part of the developing the territory through small businesses, enterprises, and sharing our culture and knowledge. Yolngu are not against business development. We want to see and be part of it. Elders from our homelands have come to me to say they want to start fishing businesses, buffalo meat businesses, tourism businesses, and there are many small businesses already. Our community art centres are world renowned. Our arts and music performance and performers already contribute greatly to the NT community. Our communities want to be part of the providing services on country, such as healing services and youth services. These services can operate more cheaply on country instead of sending people to hub centres. We want to see our children and kids grow up on country with opportunities to benefit from our ownership of country. And we do need the government to recognise and support our plans for future development that will give our young people control of their country and financial independence in the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any more speakers? Member for Katherine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise to speak on the opposition motions to recognise the importance of the regions and the role they play in the economy. Our Whanakiaro government know that we cannot rebuild our economy without our regions, and that a strong territory economy is not worth building if it does not benefit our regions. Our rebuilding the economy strategy plays to our strengths, and we've seen the latest CommSec report with the NT having the fastest growing economy in the nation. Ranked 1 for economic growth at 10.2% by CommSec, construction increases up 5.5%, housing finance up 30.1%. Madam Speaker, on this side of the House, we back small business. As a previous small business owner, I know the importance of them and how they support our territory economy. We've increased the payroll tax-free threshold, which gives businesses room to breathe, opportunities to grow, think big and create more jobs. We spoke of this in our extension of the Homegrown Territory grant, with $50,000 offered for first home buyers to build or purchase a new home. And Madam Speaker, I'd like to touch a little bit here on the social housing program, because I heard the opposition leader talk earlier that, we didn't care about social housing or affordable housing, when in actual fact there is a $50 million social housing accelerator payment, which is funded by the Australian government and is being delivered by the Northern Territory government. And I did speak about it yesterday. Construction of the next 24 homes across Darwin, Katherine, Tennant Creek and Alice Springs is expected to start in October. And I'm pleased to say, Madam Speaker, we have 8 of those houses being built in the Big Rivers region. In actual fact, there's 5 being built, as I said yesterday, in Bradshaw Crescent. Casuarina Street, there's 1. Maluka Road, there's 2. So we do actually, it's not only about private investment, It is also about the social and affordable housing for low-income earners and also, you know, people in need. So I think that's important to make sure that we, you know, just get the balance right there. And Madam Speaker, it's a bit rich for the opposition leader and in fact the whole team, 4 of them, to suddenly decide the regions are important. The hypocrisy is not lost on me as a regional member or the good people of the Northern Territory that voted them out resoundingly at the last election. And just because the words flow out of your mouth, opposition leader, it does not mean they are true. Madam Speaker, we spoke when in opposition on the importance of the regions, as the 7 of us then in opposition were mostly from the regions, and that was 4 years ago. I was actually just going back through my speeches on the computer, and I went back, and it was in 2021. We had this very conversation about the importance of the regions. And not much happened in the regions, Madam Speaker, under the previous government, but all of a sudden, here we are. So, as I said, we spoke of the importance of the regions, you know, 5 years ago. Labor, Madam Speaker, not only ran our territory into the ground economically, they left us with a crime crisis that we have worked hard at rebuilding with our large reducing crime package. Without reducing crime, we cannot have thriving communities, but Madam Speaker, we on this side of the House can walk and chew gum at the same time, as we've been doing. And I just want to pick up on some of those crime stats. NT-wide, house break-ins have decreased 25%, commercial break-ins have decreased 26%, total property offences down 77%, assaults total including DV down 5%, assaults alcohol involved down 17%, DV-related assaults down 1%, and robbery down 24%. So also in Katherine, we've had a decrease of 9% in house break-ins, 35% in commercial break-ins, and total property offences down 5%. So, and you know, I will note that there is an increase in a couple of assaults and DV-related assaults, Madam Speaker, in the Katherine area, but the police there and the broader team there with the circuit breaker team, the Kalano, the public housing safety officers and the police, you know, through their evenings that they do their regular patrollers meetings, they do a great work making sure that they are keeping our community safe. So, Madam Speaker, I listened to the opposition leader, and as a regional member, she clearly only is about gloom and doom. She didn't care about the regions when in government, nor did any of them, but all of a sudden they've had an epiphany and have come to the realisation regional Territorians contribute greatly to our economy. The only positive in her contribution was all the work that is being done, in actual fact, at RAF Base Tyndall, 15 minutes from Katherine. This is $1.1 billion federal investment in providing smaller work, which is providing smaller works for territory-based companies, with many of these people living in Katherine, shopping in Katherine and renting from people in Katherine as well. We've had investment in 2 remote work camps out of town, as well as 1 in Katherine, with upgrades to the Stewart Highway for one of them as well. These Darwin-based companies are employing locals, supporting communities, and it's part of a bigger investment in developing the north. Madam Speaker, the 𝒂𝒄𝒏𝒔 government has serious credentials when it comes to backing the bush, and this goes right back to when the 𝒂𝒄 started in self-government in 1978, with parks and roads being delivered and strong support for our regions through members like Mike Reid, who was the member for Katherine, Tim Baldwin, member for Daly, with Les McFarlane in Mataranka, to what was the seat of 𝒂𝒄𝒏𝒐𝒏𝒔, Jim Robertson in Gillen, Ian Tuxworth in the Barkly, and Roger Vale in the seat of Stewart, which is now 𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒄. So, Madam Speaker, we've had very supportive members going right back to the start of self-government, making sure that our regions are always feeling supported and kept on the focus. I'll just remind the opposition leader of the lack of support, not only for the regions, but in fact, Madam Speaker, for her own electorate. The small town of Mataranka has been trying to get land released and developed for as long as I have been the member for Katherine. Members of Roper Golf have come to me with concerns about reliability of housing developments for staff, security and the growing town of Mataranka. The Mataranka Roadhouse has been in contact with the member for Arnhem about the sewerage problems they have been having. In the tourist season, they have to get a truck to come and empty their septic tanks almost daily because of the issues around sewerage. Madam Speaker, they heard crickets from the member for Arnhem. So whilst the opposition leader has her epiphany and realises the importance of the regions, I remind her to speak to the people in her own electorate. Mataranka has a thriving community, fantastic little markets held on Sunday mornings, great businesses there, and supportive businesses like the Mataranka Manor, owned by Charlene and Michael, who have managers moving in soon as they head off down south. Businesses like the Manor have supported the Mataranka Primary School in their swimming program, which was one of our many election commitments in education we've delivered on. Madam Speaker, it has been great to see the school increase their attendance rates under the guidance of 𝑬𝒄𝒐𝒏𝒐𝒎𝒊𝒄. 𝒁𝒄 has been at the school for many years and works in partnership with families and community. Through positive relationships with the school families, extra bus pickups and working in with Aboriginal Community Police, they have had an amazing increase of 13.5 percentage points in their attendance rates, from 54.2 to 67.7%. We know that Labor drove education off a cliff, Madam Speaker, through poor attendance rates, poor literacy and numeracy, and it's been great to have seen the hard work our attendance officers, engagement officers, school counsellors, school-based police and the ALOs have been doing to support attendance, and we've seen them be stabilised at 71.7, the attendance rates. 4 of the 6 regions went up and 68 schools recorded higher attendance than this time last year. Mangbarra community achieved an incredible 30 percentage points increase, and they are to be applauded. A very small homeland, Madam Speaker, but as I said yesterday, these homelands and all of the smaller communities, if we don't get those kids to school, it just brings down all of the rest of the attendance rates as well. So it's great to see out in the remote and very remote regions, they are working extremely hard. Madam Speaker, economic values of the regions have been stifled under the previous Labor government. Developments such as the One Northern Renewables, Jake Groves have been trying to get through in Katherine were held up under Labor as they did not see the significance of allowing business and young business owners like Jake to develop land, build and add considerably to our local Katherine and greater economic region. Thanks to the Member for Breitling and Minister for Lands, Planning and Environment, I've been able to work through many planned development opportunities to enable growth in my town. Bob Holt, another developer, has got a development on Florina Road that has been stifled, and again, through working with the Minister and the Department, this development will come to fruition. And there's many like that, Madam Speaker, that as the member for Katherine, I've had people coming in to, they've wanted to develop for many years, whether it be changing what their land is, whether it's going from, rural residential to being able to be a business. Those kind of things they had put into the previous government and they had not been able to get success. So it's been great to see that many of these businesses and, small business and large business have been able to actually be freed up, and that all adds to the economic growth of Katherine. I just wanted to talk a little bit, Madam Speaker, about some of the other things. Just recently I was at the Katherine High School. We opened the STEAM Centre, which was something that, 5 years ago, as I was elected as the member for Katherine, I lobbied for the STEAM Centre to be built there. We hadn't had any development in that school for over 40 years, whilst up in Darwin in the Chief Minister's own electorate, we saw $37 million being spent at Darwin Middle and Darwin High, but out in the regions, again, not much money going into education. And so it was great to have been able to open the STEAM Centre a couple of weeks ago. M&J Builders did an absolutely fantastic job with that development and the renovation of the building. They used some of the school students to be able to do courses while they were there doing that building through small vet courses, and it was really It was really great. They had a great working relationship, not only with DLI, but also with the school, and everyone was very supportive of them, and it really is a great investment in our school community. At the Catherine show, back in July, the Minister for Arts and Culture was down in Catherine along with the whole team, and we had the announcement of $1 million for an all-weather structure over our golf and over our bowls club. And that is going to make such a difference, Madam Speaker, to all of the people that are able to use that facility. It'll be all year round that they can have events, have bowls nights, have barefoot bowls. The amount of times that I see people using it now without an all-weather cover over it, it will just be tenfold by the time that cover gets on, and I look forward to seeing that come to fruition as well. Also, we had an election commitment of the multicultural facility, and I note the Minister spoke about that before. That was $1.5 million for a multicultural facility. We have a very vibrant multicultural facility, a very vibrant multicultural group in Catherine, and to have a facility where they can go have their their festivals, where I know up here there's a lot of multicultural groups that have their own buildings and whatever. In Catherine, they're always looking out for somewhere to hold their festivities. The Red Cross have the Joy of Many Colours and that festival, and they hire out the Goddenman Arts and Cultural Centre. So it would be great to be able to have festivals like that in their own in their own building. Also, I just want to touch on the Territory Energy Link. That's another big economic driver in our regions. The Territory Energy Link is a multi-user, multi-asset corridor, and it connects the Beetaloo Sub-Basin to Middle Arm, designed to carry gas, fibre optic cable, water, hydrogen, and other essential services. And that development, Madam Speaker, links the Beetaloo, and it's expected to generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity and thousands of jobs over the coming decades. And, some of that, it'll be, picking up in Elliott there, Daly Waters, Tennant Creek, Catherine, all these small communities and towns that are close to the Beetaloo. It'll be great to see the development over time, Madam Speaker, with that Territory Energy Link, with the opening up of the Beetaloo coming on in years to come. And I just wanted to pick up also, the opposition leader spoke about Nhulunbuy. Well, Madam Speaker, it is very evident that they didn't actually get the picture on how to boost the economy or even how to manage an economy. Because if you want to have future economic growth in places like Nhulunbuy, where things are slowing down, you have to get the fundamentals right. People need confidence, and they need some kind of security to be able to invest in business. Small business people, as I said, are the backbone of communities. But people are not going to go and invest in that community if they don't have the confidence. And so for small businesses to go there, they need to know, it's not about government just handing out money, hand over fist, which we absolutely saw under the previous government. So, for that town to thrive, we need to make sure that the fundamentals are right to give small business the security and confidence to go there and set up to actually make money and have a future there. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any other speakers? In closing, oh no, member for Port Darwin.
Sorry, Madam Speaker.
That's okay.
Not quick enough. Madam Speaker, I rise to speak to the motion on the motion of economic value of the regions. Madam Speaker, the Northern Territory is poised on the edge of an economic boom that will position us as the powerhouse of Australia, potentially the world. And Madam Speaker, at the heart of that boom are our regions. Madam Speaker, our vast regional areas, while remote, are the heart and soul of our territory, and their economic prosperity underpins the economic prosperity for the territory as a whole. Madam Speaker, to paraphrase the euphemism, one man's trash is another man's treasure, for the territory, our regions in particular, Australia's challenge in the energy space is without doubt the territory's opportunity. Why do I say that, Madam Speaker? Well, it is well known that Australia is at a crossroads when it comes to energy security. The East Coast, Victoria in particular, has been hell-bent on shutting down historical fuel sources and, as a consequence, is running out of energy, and their holy grail, renewables, is proving a little elusive. Major infrastructure projects are at risk, and some projects, such as a major data centre planned for New South Wales, are not progressing due to fears that East Coast power grids will fail under the burden of such an energy-intense project. Threats of rolling brownouts and full blackouts are increasingly likely as East Coast energy supplies dwindle. Madam Speaker, herein lies the biggest opportunity for unprecedented economic prosperity the territory and, most importantly, our regions have ever seen. And that opportunity, Madam Speaker, comes in the form of the Beetaloo Basin Gas Reserve, one of the largest gas reserves in the world, right here on, or should I say under, the territory's doorstep. Estimates put the reserve at more than 500 trillion cubic feet, or TCS, of gas. To put that into perspective, Madam Speaker, the INPEX project, worth $60 billion, was built on the promise of 12 TCF. The Beetaloo is over 500 TCF. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's 500 trillion cubic feet of gas, enough gas to power the whole of Australia for, conservatively, the next 200 years. Madam Speaker, that means energy security for our kids, our grandkids, our kids' grandkids, and beyond. Madam Speaker, this resource is game-changing for every single Territorian, and yet, Madam Speaker, those sitting on the other side, when they were in government, introduced a moratorium on gas exploration in the Territory that almost derailed this opportunity from which our regions have the most to gain. They pulled on the handbrake for an industry we now know to be vital, not just to the Territory, but to the whole of Australia. I will admit that they did realise the error of their ways, Madam Speaker, a couple of years later, but did they embrace the opportunity and fast-track it, Madam Speaker? No, they sat on their hands for another 5 years before granting permission for exploration to continue in the Beetaloo. 5 years, and who knows how many millions of dollars wasted and opportunities delayed by a Labor government with no vision for the Territory. I listened, Madam Speaker, to the member of 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒊𝒄 speaking earlier on how important it is to invest in the arts and festivals and events in remote communities. And you know what, Madam Speaker? He is absolutely right. But, Madam Speaker, here's the rub. If those on the other side had had the vision to progress the single biggest opportunity to achieve economic independence for our regional areas and the Territory as a whole we have ever seen, such a discussion would be a moot point. An opportunity lost, Madam Speaker. It's no wonder they are now sitting on the opposition benches, defeated and depleted. Thankfully, Madam Speaker, our 𝒄𝒈 CLP government has the vision and the drive to stand up for the gas industry, which is the key to the economic development of our regions. An industry that will drive the Territory's economy, population and business growth, that will fund major infrastructure projects, that will support innovation. Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition earlier lamented the challenges being faced by the Jabiru community following the closure of Jabiluka. Again, imagine, Madam Speaker, the future Jabiru would have been guaranteed if we had not, on Labor's watch, lost almost a decade of progress in the development of the gas sector in the Territory. Imagine if, instead of being on the brink of an economic boom today, we were 5 years in. Why do I say that, Madam Speaker? Well, getting that gas out of the ground is just the beginning of the economic opportunity gas presents for our regions. There is no question the key to economic growth is cheap energy, and that is what the Beetaloo Basin will deliver. And once that occurs, the opportunities for our regions will only be limited by our vision. And our vision, Madam Speaker, is infinite. There is, of course, the obvious benefit, the gas itself, gas for our own domestic use, gas for the East Coast, gas for export, but this will be the icing on the cake, Madam Speaker. The real economic prosperity for our regions will come from the cake. Downstreaming of projects on the back of cheap, long-term energy combined with the work our government has done in reducing red tape, creating the best regulatory framework in the country and leaning into critical infrastructure such as the Territory Energy Link being progressed by my colleague, the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure, will be the real game changer. Work is already underway, Madam Speaker, to engage with sectors that can benefit from a reliable, low-cost, stable energy supply. Energy-intensive industries are looking to the Northern Territory as a place to invest and secure not only their future, but the future of the Territory. And as I previously mentioned, data centre projects on the East Coast are being cancelled due to concerns about a lack of power. But here in Darwin, construction of our second data centre is underway. 4 new subsea data cables are in train to land here over the next couple of years, with a data highway being built down through Central Australia, connecting Darwin to Adelaide and beyond, saving milliseconds, which I have learned saves millions of dollars when transferring data. It's not just about cheap energy gas will provide, Madam Speaker. There are 2 other highly prized commodities our regions have to offer: space and sun. For advanced manufacturing companies, our region often offers open spaces which are perfect as testing grounds for industries such as drone technology that is being employed to map mining opportunities using ground-penetrating radar, mapping underground mineral deposits faster and more accurately than ever before. Space to grow our solar energy production. I note the opposition leader mentioned Sun Cable earlier, intimating that this is not a project supported by our government, which is absolutely not true. I have met with Sun Cable multiple times, both here in the Territory and in Singapore, Madam Speaker, and look to explore opportunities to utilise their resources here in the Territory while they complete negotiations with our near neighbours to finalise their connection with Singapore. Opportunities, Madam Speaker, that will directly benefit our regions. Large projects like those underway in the Beetaloo will create thousands of jobs, jobs filled by thousands of people who will require goods and services supplied by our small local businesses. The member for Berkeley understands, Madam Speaker, the benefits of the jobs being created in his electorate by the Beetaloo project, a project that is projected to require 20,000 workers during construction, many of whom will ultimately make their homes with their families here in the Territory, all buying coffee at local coffee shops, eating at local restaurants, shopping at local supermarkets. Driving the wider economy, supporting small businesses and encouraging new ones, small businesses will be the backbone for the regions, providing the goods and services to those workers and their families. Each project will drive population growth, which in turn will drive increased services into the regions and upgrades to critical infrastructure such as roads. Population growth will drive investment in housing, as well as services like education and health, improving the lives of all Territorians. Madam Speaker, in my role as Minister for Asian Relations, I have had the privilege of re-engaging with our Asian neighbours, and during my visits to the regions, it became increasingly apparent that Southeast Asian tourists are looking for something different and unique for their next holiday destination. And who better to accommodate a uniquely Territorian holiday experience than our regional service providers? This growing tourist market, Madam Speaker, is looking for things they can't get at home. They are looking for space, wide open spaces and immersion in nature. The regions offer this in abundance, and we are already seeing businesses take advantage of this opportunity. A fabulous example is the Uluru-Katajuka Signature Walk, set to launch in time for the 2026 walking season in Central Australia. The walk will offer patrons a 5-day and 4-night 54-kilometre adventure, and I'm told it's a fairly soft walk, Madam Speaker, with a lot of camping and support along the way, through the Red Centre's outback, an experience only the regions of the Northern Territory can offer. Madam Speaker, the opportunities that are afforded us by our regions are enormous, and we are ready to support our regions to maximise the opportunities available to them and ensure they thrive. Our territory is vast. It is the top end, the Red Centre, it is Kakadu and Catherine Gorge, it is the rich in resources Barkly region, beautiful Nhulunbuy and the stunning Tiwi Islands. For the territory to thrive, each and every region must be supported to thrive, and each and every member of our 17-strong CLP government will do everything in our power to see the potential of our regions realised. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Karama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And can I say I'm very pleased to stand up and talk to this motion put forward by the Leader of the Opposition, the economic value of the regions. And can I say, if the question is, do we acknowledge the economic value of the regions? Absolutely we do. I fully support it. Absolutely. Regions are vitally important, not only to the Territory but to Australia as a whole. And so if we just go out nationally without focusing on the Territory straight away, sure, we have a big population that's concentrated around the coasts of Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia and so on. But sure, we don't have the big population in Northern Australia, but Northern Australia as a whole generates a lot of the economic wealth for Australia. And if you go from North Queensland, come through there, come across to the Territory into Northern WA, you see a lot of those fundamental industries that are driving the economy of Australia. Be it coal in Queensland, be it iron ore over in WA, be it the agricultural regions, be it everything in between, including in the Territory, they really do generate and a lot of the export income for Australia as a whole. And of course that money goes to the Commonwealth, that gets redistributed around the states and territories through GST, etc. So the regions of Australia are vitally important. And then when we come to the Northern Territory, I'd say the story is the same. Sure, we have concentration of population up around Darwin and a couple other major centres. But if you look where the economic growth for the Territory is really driven, it's from the regions. Because you've got the natural resources out there, the natural industries. So let's go back to what our government, when we came in, we said we wanted to focus on, and I keep going back to this lovely little document, Madam Speaker, which everyone knows I refer to, our plan, but we identified 5 key industry sectors. 5 key industry sectors: tourism, defence, agriculture, gas and mining. All of those industry sectors are spread across the Territory and through our regions, and they play a vital part in it. Tourism, we want people to go and see the whole of the Territory and get that whole experience, including the Aboriginal experience that the member for 𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒄 referred to. Absolutely, we should tap into all the experiences and put them on offer. And let's develop them as well as we can. Defence, obviously very important where they locate, but they're in different spots around the Territory. Obviously up here in Darwin, we've got the naval bases, we've got Robertson Barracks, but we do have other bases down around Katherine, very strategic bases, and some of the bombing ranges and all that down there, very strategic. We also have joint facilities, including down at Pine Gap and so on. These are really important parts of the national security, but they're based here in the Territory. Agriculture. Well, we've just had, in question time, I think the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries outlined the importance and growth of the agricultural sector, and we're seeing that trend up. But that spreads across all of our regions. And you can head out towards the Ord River area, going towards Kununurra and so on. All of that development out in the VRD, fantastic. I was talking to some people who were moving freight the other day in my electorate. I said, what are you moving? They're moving sandalwood. They're bringing sandalwood out of the Ord and bring it down to get exported out and processed. Mangoes, we can think of all the agriculture, and that was talked before. Then we have gas and mining. Absolutely gas and mining. And I did hear the member of 𝒂𝒑, and I think he came up with a great idea. We need to work out a way of recycling the solar panels, because we're getting a lot of solar panels up here, we've got a lot of sun, but how can we make a business out of solar panels? Now, you've got to recycle them, but you've got to make it cost effective. But I go back to, how are solar panels made? How are solar panels made? Well, I'll tell you what, they're made out of a lot of critical minerals that have to be taken out of the ground. They have to be processed. And I guarantee you most of the energy coming processing and making those solar panels is actually base load energy. It's probably driven by gas or coal or something in the manufacturing process. So why we sort of say, oh no, we've got to go all to renewables to make renewable panels, that's not the way it works. That is not the way it works. So we've got to understand the fundamental reason why we have these baseload energy systems. And the Territory is blessed with them. We've just heard, we know about all the offshore oil and gas, but it's the onshore oil and gas. That's where the big opportunity comes. And it's an opportunity, if we develop it properly across the regions, where we can generate our own source revenue, just to help us get away from relying on the Commonwealth funding going forward, if we can do it properly. And the Beetaloo, magnificent, magnificent, the Beetaloo. It did actually get stymied a bit on the way, I must admit, which is a bit of a worry, through moratoriums put on by the previous Gunner Labor government and so on. But let me go back to, once again, my little reference point here. What did we say we wanted? We wanted a safe and well-regulated gas industry. A safe and well-regulated gas industry. Because we wanted Territory gas to grow the Territory economy. And this is what we said. You may not like it, but this is what we said. Labor has mismanaged our gas supply. They can't even give certainty to keep the lights on in our towns and regions. The CLP have always stood up for and supported the Territory's gas industry. And this industry will proceed with certainty under a CLP government, and that's what we're seeing happening now. We have this incredible resource right here, and thousands of Territory jobs could be created over the next 20 years. The gas from the Beetaloo is cleaner than fossil fuels and can be used to transition to renewables and create a new clean energy source. We are not against renewables, absolutely not. And if there's a natural economic transition to move to them, so be it. Market forces will make us go that way anyway. We will ensure the gas industry is well regulated, that our domestic power is secure and the benefits of a strong economy flow to Territorians. Now, we've got work to do on those. Absolutely we do. But the gas and the certainty of that energy supply certainly helps us do that. Not only will gas grow our local economy, but it will help Australia meet its emissions targets. Gas is the cleaner and cheaper pathway to renewables, certainly better than coming out of coal and so on. The Territory's gas can provide the solution to the East Coast power shortage and provide economic benefit to Territorians. So we are moving on that front, and I think if you think about the economic development of the gas and the Beetaloo, it is creating jobs in the regions, and this is where we need it. Go to mining. Mining again. Now, we've just heard with the discussions between Prime Minister Albanese and President Trump. They've signed a deal in terms of critical minerals and so on over there. Really good. Potentially that really helps our projects like the Arafura Resource Project and so on. But it's our minerals, lithium and all those areas. That's where we can generate jobs. These are minerals that are required for everything going forward in the future. given we want to get into semiconductors and all that stuff, that's driving a lot of our technology. As we move into AI, a lot of these minerals become more and more critical, and we need to develop our resources. And if we don't do it now, we will get taken over by someone else. You have a certain investment window when there's an opportunity. If you miss out of it, if you start delaying it, if you go and put moratoriums on it when you shouldn't put moratoriums, you actually put at risk the viability of some of our wonderful sectors. So that's why I say I'm absolutely, in principle, all for this motion, and I could not vote for it if that was the word. Let's acknowledge the economic value of the regions. But I also want to go back to roads. I never got to talk when we were having the discussion on roads. I think roads are absolutely important in terms of our connectivity and getting things going through here. If you recall, in the 2025-26 budget, we delivered a significant $2 billion investment in road infrastructure to upgrade, seal and maintain critical transport routes across the Northern Territory. This is connectivity. This is bringing our whole regions together, trying to get the best value out of it that we can. This investment reflects the CLP's commitment to continually improving the road network to connect communities, support economic development, improve safety and enable better access to essential services. I am a big supporter of strategically investing in roads. And I think any time we've got the money, and I say if we've got the money to invest in strategic roads, that's fantastic things to do. You know, strengthened transport links benefit all Territorians, as I said. Now, I know the Treasurer has already outlined, or the Minister for Logistics and Transport has already outlined, some of the upgrades to the national highways, remote access roads and flood-resilient infrastructure to suit our climate. Flood-resilient. We've got to start taking a longer-term view and building all-weather roads to some of our regions. And we've got to have that as the ambition, connecting up Nullarbor and so on. All-weather roads so that we don't get washed out in wet seasons and we miss out on the opportunity. Sure, all-weather road out to Port Keats as well. All for that too, no worries, if we can afford it. Because we see if there's a disruption to coastal services, we've got to be able to supply our communities. And as you build all-weather access, you actually open up better opportunities for tourism, better opportunities for communities themselves to develop out in the regions. So I'm all for that. Some of the roads that were highlighted, $289 million Tanami Road upgrade. Fantastic. The Tanami really generating economic wealth through the gold mining operations out there. I also think back to McArthur River Mine. You know, there's another big generator of income for the Territory, once again supporting our regions. The National Highway Networks obviously do that in partnership with the federal government. Central Arnhem Road upgrade program, $200 million, great. Get some of those cattle roads, beef cattle roads, connecting all those where we've got production so we can get the product to markets. That's fantastic stuff to do. And there's a whole range of others there. So you can see I'm actually for this. I'm actually for this motion. But I've also got to put a word of caution in here, and let me open up if I can open up my phone, Madam Speaker. What we've got to do is we've got to have the money to invest in these things. And that means when we plan these things, we've actually got a budget for them, and we've got to invest wisely. Strategic investment, long-term investment in roads is really good. I have no problem with that. But we've got to be able to afford it. And that means we've got to do the proper analysis. Is the road actually going to work? Are the projects that we're going to, the economic production areas we're trying to do, are they actually going to work? Now, unfortunately, if I go back to the previous Labor government, Madam Speaker, they've got this history, and I've said this before, of going for big projects, putting out a press release, but then it all failing over. But allocating money, spending money wastefully on stuff that just doesn't happen. Now, I think the intention was good, great intentions, but they don't deliver and they actually waste money. And that wasteful money means we can't spend it on the stuff we need to spend it on. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. We're all aware of the ship lift. Start off at $100 million as a contribution towards a private sector development. Current estimates is around $820 million for the government, which means taxpayers on the hook. Could be more, could be more. $820 million. Now, I'm not against the ship lift per se. The ship lift's okay, but I don't think anyone in hindsight would say it was worth $820 million. Where could that money have gone to? That could have gone to some of those strategic roads. It could have gone to upgrading Port Keats roads. It could have done a lot of things, and we would have got better return and better value for taxpayers' money. The Tiger Brennan overpass. Sure, it's been delivered. I'll give you credit, it's got delivered. But it's $100-odd million over budget. $100 million over budget. Would we have done that if we knew that was going to be the total cost, or would we have invested it elsewhere? We would have got a better return. But here's the kicker, Madam Speaker. Here's the kicker. This is the one that really sort of gets me, where everything is driven by press release, great intentions, but the actual skill of knowing a basic commercial case and doing the investigations that we should do before we invest a lot of money just don't seem to happen under Labor, and certainly not the previous Labor government. So I'm going to quote from a press release, 23rd of May 2018, and this came out of the office of the Chief Minister at the time, but it's revolving around the then Deputy Chief Minister, Nicole Manison. I'll just quote. Deputy Chief Minister Nicole Manison today congratulated Sea Farms on its significant announcement of Japanese global seafood giant Nissu's investment in the company and Project Sea Dragon. Goes on. Ms Manison said attracting one of the world's largest seafood companies to make such a significant commitment to Project Sea Dragon is a huge vote of confidence. Absolutely, sounds great. And the NT. And will pave the way for the creation of 1,500 jobs. 1,500 jobs once fully operational. Absolutely fantastic. If Project Sea Dragon is a $1.45 billion prawn aquaculture project that will see the development of up to 10,000 hectares of land for black tiger prawns, etc. The Territory Labor government backs Project Sea Dragon because it delivers a new industry for Australia, driven from the Territory, will create hundreds of permanent jobs, including for Aboriginal Territorians. Wonderful regional outcomes this is. Now, but we have invested over $56 million in roads that will help support this massive job-creating project. The NT will play a big role in the economic development of Northern Australia, and today's announcement shows just how important we are. Well, that was brilliant. It was a magnificent press release. So I just remind people, 1,500 jobs. How many we got now? How many did it deliver? 0? I think so. $1.45 billion project. I don't see it, I'm sorry. And development of up to 10,000 hectares of land? No, that didn't quite turn out either. It is the largest of its kind in Australia. Well, it might be the largest rip-off of roads, I'm not too sure. But we did get our roads delivered. Roads to nowhere. This is what we've done. We've delivered roads to nowhere. So I think the intention was right, but the absolute delivery was crap. And it's at the expense of taxpayers, and that's the problem. Taxpayers, Territorians are the ones that suffer. And the other people that suffer are those who want to do strategic investments in the Territory, but we don't have the funds to do it. We've been plunged into, what, $15 billion worth of debt? I'm sorry, you've got to get it right, and you've got to do your due diligence and really do proper analysis. I don't mind investing as long as we're honest about what we're going to invest, what we hope to do, and taking longer-term views fine. So on that note, I just caution everyone, don't govern by press release, because if I add up the cost of 3 press releases, we've just spent a lot. We're probably spending $300 million per press release at the moment, money we don't have, and we've got to change that. And this CLP government is definitely doing that. The Treasurer has already had to come back and say, look, we've had to cut back on things because we don't have money, but let's get back to the truth. We all want to develop our regions. The regions are vitally important to the Territory, and I absolutely agree with the motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Goyder.
Madam Speaker, I rise to speak on this motion about the economic value of the regions, and I thought that we might go in a slightly different direction, and I'd like to highlight some of the fantastic projects that are going on in the regions right now in the aquaculture space, Madam Speaker. One of my favourite things is every fortnight or every week I get a little email in my inbox from the Tharama Development Corporation with an update of what's going on. And week by week, I get to see a highlight of the aquaculture sector developing in our regions, Madam Speaker. And I have with me a collection of these newsletters, which I will be tabling at the end. But Madam Speaker, this journey starts in February this year when people from 𝒂𝒒𝒏𝒂𝒂 started training with people from 𝒂𝒑𝒑, different aquaculture skills. This program involved both people, workers from 𝒂𝒑𝒏𝒂𝒂 travelling out to 𝒂𝒑𝒑, as well as members of the community in 𝒂𝒑𝒑 travelling into the lovely 𝒂𝒑𝒏𝒂𝒑 facility. Now, Madam Speaker, this program, I believe, is funded in part through the Department of Trade, Business and Asian Relations, and it's a great initiative, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, in February, they had hands-on training. They learnt what it's like to feed barramundi and all the fun stuff. And then later in April, Madam Speaker, I got a lovely newsletter which started talking about the first oyster grade. So, Madam Speaker, the 𝒂𝒊𝒄 oyster farm, can you say it for me, please? I'm trying to say a positive story, but obviously the member for Daly is used to talking down, so I'm going to try and keep this positive, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, they had a farm grade...
Can we just direct questions through the Chair and no interjections, please? Thank you.
Mr Deputy Speaker, they had a first farm grade for the 2023 batch in April this year, and that was exciting. Lots of great photos of that, Mr Deputy Speaker. Later in May, there was more training, again in partnership with 𝒂𝒒𝒏𝒂𝒂, some lovely photos of everyone getting involved. And I have an article here from Territory Q Business magazine about the journey around oysters. And there's a quote here from a member of the 𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒂 family, where they talk about what it means to get involved in aquaculture and how growing oysters on country is a good idea and we all want it to succeed. And Mr Deputy Speaker, I want it to succeed. Everyone wants it to succeed. It's a great initiative. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, later in the May version, the 23rd of May, the third batch of oyster spat arrives. So the oysters are actually spawned at the Darwin Aquaculture Centre down on Channel Island. Mr Deputy Speaker, it's a great facility full of wonderful staff, so credit to the fishery team there. They provide the spat that then goes out to community, so also out towards, I believe, Green Island are a customer as well. So the third batch arrives. That's 3 in 3 years. I think they do about one a year. It was in April, I think, then December the following year, and then May this year. And then as we progress, there was actually the Aboriginal Sea Company got involved and reached out and ended up going out to 𝒂𝒑𝒑 to talk about the CBAT project, which is the community-based aquaculture training tools. So this is a culturally appropriate training across Northern Regions communities. So they had a workshop. There was a presentation by the Groot Aqua and Oyster Basket Making Training by Stokes Consulting. And then they've got some photos of the oyster baskets in progress. So that's a great partnership right across the territory. And then, Mr Deputy Speaker, in June this year, the ABC and TDC progressed their plans for the crabbing business. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, it's beautiful country out there, full of lots of mud crabs, and there's talks about how they can get their own mud crab harvesting industry in production. So the Aboriginal Sea Company and TDC have been working together, and this was in June. So there's a bit of a fun story as we get further along, but they're very excited to getting closer to launching a locally driven crabbing enterprise in 2025. We're only up to June, so no spoilers yet. Now, in September, there was some extra training around crab handling. Now, they do have big nippers, especially out there, Mr Deputy Speaker, so you've got to be careful, you've got to watch your toes, got to watch your fingers. So the training was well taken up. Everyone was very happy. Theo successfully obtained his approved operator licence to manage a commercial crabbing lease, which is a great achievement for his future as they work to develop that crabbing industry. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, in September this year, the NT government announced a closure of mud crabbing in a certain region of the territory. I think it's the Arafura West Mud Crab Fishery is the name. And there was concerns raised, and that was written to the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries regarding the closure and would it impact this budding business straight out the door. And I'm pleased to say, after discussions with myself and everyone else, it has been managed to be overcome, Mr Deputy Speaker. And 2 or 3 newsletters later, we have that confirmed in writing from TDC that the crabbing industry will be allowed to be still being able to take harvest and everything else. They're not part of the effective closure that was going on. So that's a great territory-wide outcome, because we want to see local jobs, local aquaculture. I love fish farming, Mr Deputy Speaker, so maybe one day alongside the Humpty Doo barramundi on the menu, we might see a Port Keats barramundi or a Palumpa barramundi or whatever it might be, but the more the better. I think all fish should come from the territory, and I don't really like eating salmon. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, there was an update in October where the sea farmers, the Tharramur sea farmers, which is what they're calling the mud crabbing industry, so the new side went up, which is very excited. The new Regional Jobs and Economic Development Program, it's funded through that, rather, for 3 years, so it's very excited. NT Fisheries are doing their part to make sure it all goes smooth. And I think it's just one of those, Mr Deputy Speaker, where the government can partner with organisations, Aboriginal organisations in community, it can partner with local families, it can partner with private companies such as Humpty Doo Barramundi to help build and nurture new aquaculture facilities in the Northern Territory and get that industry thriving. So I think it's a massive success. We've got a lot of water in the Northern Territory. A lot of coastal communities would benefit from aquaculture, and I'm excited to see what's happening over on the Tiwi Islands too with their prawns. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, that's all from me, but it's a great success story, and I look forward to seeing it develop.
Thank you, Member for Goyder. Member for Barclay.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Oh, thank you for the cheer squad over there. I know that they all, well, I'll work through this. I'm not sure if they do support the Barclay or not, but I might have to go back through some of the history just to see how much support there was for the Barclay. But, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is a great pleasure to stand tonight and talk about the economic value of regions, because we know right across the Northern Territory the work that goes on in the regions, the investment in the regions, the people in the regions that are contributing to economic development right around the Northern Territory. But Mr Deputy Speaker, the CLP does have a proud record, and I want to put that on the record today, is that we're backing the bush and we're driving growth across our regions. And before I get into it, I just do want to acknowledge Aboriginal businesses. I was at the opening of the NTIBN last week of the Indigenous Economic Development Forum, and to working through some of those figures. And Aboriginal businesses are for every dollar invested, it's returning $6 for the Territory economy, but also $3 billion contribution right across the Northern Territory, Mr Deputy Speaker, and nationally $15 billion coming from Aboriginal businesses right around the nation. So it was great to be at the awards night, and I heard the member for Arnhem talk about the awards night. I was there as well, and I do want to congratulate all the winners that not only won awards, Mr Deputy Speaker, but the number of Aboriginal businesses that are right around the Territory. I have Aboriginal businesses in my electorate, and so a big shout out to them, and thank you for all of the work you do. But the CLP is delivering for all regions, and Mr Deputy Speaker, you can't rebuild the Territory economy without the strength of our regions, and the CLP gets that. We govern for all Territorians, not just those in Darwin and Palmerston, but those beyond the Berrimah line and down the track to Katherine, the mighty Barclay, and of course down in Central Australia. The CLP Whanokē-Aro government unveiled its Rebuilding the Economy strategy earlier this year to make the Territory the best place to do business. Unlocking regional growth is one of the 5 priorities for achieving our vision to rebuild the Territory economy by growing faster than anywhere else in Australia, and playing to our strengths by growing and building on areas with high potential for job and wealth creation, including in our regions. At the heart of this strategy are our regions, the bedrock of the Territory economy and home to our key industries, particularly energy, defence, agriculture, mining and tourism. In my electorate, and I want to focus on my electorate, Mr Deputy Speaker, the economic value of my region to the Territory is absolutely clear and it's growing. I did hear, I think it was the opposition leader, I don't know, she was rambling on about no economic growth plans, and but I do want to talk about, we've had a Barkly regional deal since April 2019, Mr Deputy Speaker. So clearly the opposition leader, who was a former minister responsible for the Barkly regional deal, seemed to have no concept of what that regional deal was all about, because as part of that regional deal, which I was a signatory to when I was the Mayor of the Barkly Regional Council, includes an economic growth strategy. So sadly, the Labor opposition over there aren't aware of what's in the regional deal, but there is an economic growth strategy, a workforce strategy, and of course an Aboriginal workforce strategy as well. So bit of education there for Labor, who clearly didn't have any focus on the region. So that's what's in the regional deal over there. So I suggest you pick it up, take it off the shelf, dust it off and have a look in there. Mr Deputy Speaker, mining is a big part of the Barkly. We've just heard the announcement around Arafura, the rare earths Nolan's rare earths project, which is exciting news and potential for large-scale US investment. As well as royalties, there are expected to be over 650 jobs in construction and 350 in operational jobs for the region. It'll also boost the region through the pipeline of service industry required to support the mine. It's estimated to be in production well and truly by 29. Mr Deputy Speaker, mining is one of the major industries in the Barkly, creating economic value for the region. Our government investment and focus on making Tennant Creek the Territory's mining centre. There has been recent announcements about Verdant Minerals out of Amaroo. That's a phosphate project, and they were granted mineral leases in early 25, and further good news, had mining authorisation approved in recent weeks. Avenira, another large phosphate deposit out on the Barkly Highway with the Winara phosphate deposit. The inaugural ore shipment from Avenira's Winara project is expected in Q1, Q2 next year. This initial phosphate will support agricultural productivity, while the future project phases will create opportunities for high-value downstream processing, manufacturing and investment. Again, this project is expected to create 50 jobs during construction and up to 100 direct local jobs, with further indirect employment and infrastructure investments flowing from it. And of course, the new mine, the Tennant Creek mine, Mr Deputy Speaker, a 20-year life at Noble's Knob gold mine in Tennant Creek, and I was fortunate to be at the opening of the mine with the Deputy Chief Minister. Got to see some of the operation, meet the people, but also just to have a look at the gold production going on there. So a fantastic project for Tennant Creek, which will create a number of local jobs and investment in Tennant Creek, and also create opportunities for small business. This $94 million project is expected to deliver an average of 60,000 ounces of gold per year over the life of the mine and create more than 160 jobs. The CLP is providing a regulatory and investment environment that helps get projects off the ground quickly and successfully. Other projects in the region, Castell Resources has the copper, gold, bismuth Rover 1 project, which is southwest of Tennant Creek. Tungsten mining in the Hatches Creek area. In my electorate, Mr Deputy Speaker, the MacArthur River mine near Borroloola has a mine life until around about 2040, and already the MacArthur River mine employs 1,320 people and contractors. So our government is delivering on its commitment to grow the Territory economy, drive regional development and support long-term job creation through a strong sustainable resources sector. Mr Deputy Speaker, in addition, in my electorate we also have Beetaloo, which is those that know about Beetaloo. We know that the Labor Party didn't support gas here in the Territory, and we were plagued by delays in getting those projects up and going. But Beetaloo is making progress, and at the moment it's creating economic opportunities, jobs for Territorians, and it's also creating a stronger regional economy in the Barkly and right across the Northern Territory. Labor left Beetaloo in limbo for nearly a decade, stalling jobs, stalling royalties and putting our own energy security at risk. The Beetaloo holds enough gas to power Australia for 200 years, and unlocking it will drive a gas-led recovery after a decade of Labor inaction. We are committed to backing the development of the Beetaloo and creating the economic opportunities that come with it, more jobs for Territorians, stronger regional communities and long-term royalty revenue. Sun Cable, again, I heard the opposition over there talking about Sun Cable. I think someone over there thought it was up in Elliott, but it's actually at Powell Creek. So that really highlights the problem over on that side of the chamber, Mr Deb. They didn't know where the Sun Cable project was. So it just beggars belief that not only do they not know where these projects are, they did very little to get these projects off the ground. So the CLP is also investing in the bush. We're investing $4.14 in Borroloola to upgrade the power station, and we'll be delivering our $20 million commitment to build a new health centre at Borroloola. This is an example of the CLP government's commitment to working with Aboriginal communities, partnering with local business, organisations and the Australian government to foster economic development in the regions. Agriculture is another key part of the economic value of the Barkly. There's around 50 cattle stations across the Barkly who are all significant and important contributors to the cattle industry and the wider $1.3 billion agricultural sector. But importantly, they're supporting local communities in the regions. The NT cattle industry manages nearly half of the Territory's landmass and is more than 2 million head of cattle, making it a major contributor to the national and international beef supply chain. Mr Deputy Speaker, in my electorate, just down the road in Alicurung, 170 kilometres southeast of Tennant Creek, we've got the watermelon farm, Desert Springs Watermelon Farm, producing around 8,000 tonnes of watermelons annually. It's an incredible project which has been around since roughly about 2008, so around about 17 years, the project. But in that area, and I want to give Senafarm a shout out. They've done some amazing work in the area, working on other land opportunities in the Alicurung region, but also just south of Wycliffe Well, there's some further opportunities there that are being explored at the moment. There's also the 5,700 hectare Larimar agricultural precinct under development. Crabbing and fishing is a big part of my electorate as well. My electorate is about the same size as the member for 𝑽𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒄's electorate. But up there, up around King Ash Bay, though, Mr Deputy Speaker, fishing, crabbing and tourism opportunities up there in the Gulf area are being not only explored but utilised and creating opportunities and attracting visitors to the Gulf area. So a very important part of my electorate. Crabs are highly prized and sell to seafood restaurants and retailers across Australia and overseas for anywhere between $70 and $100 per kilo. Tourism I've touched on. The iconic Devil's Marbles in my electorate. We've got, as I said, King Ash Bay, Borroloola, but also through my region, the Davenport Ranges. There's lots and lots of tourism opportunities in the Barkly, even if places like Aileron. The Mudgera man up on the hill there, 17 metres high, weighing a massive 8 tonnes, which was I think Mark Egan was the artist that put that together. So another icon in the Barkly. Our government announced recently a $1.2 million investment in Battery Hill in Tennant Creek. And this is important, Mr Deputy Speaker, because we also announced a $500,000 grant it's an interpretation project, and that will also assist with storytelling, digital content and upgraded signage at Battery Hill. And when you compare that to some of the promises that were made by Labor during their 8 years in government but failed to deliver anything at Battery Hill, it's just an example of us getting on with the job and delivering. Despite Labor promised back in 2016 to upgrade the Nikaninu Art and Cultural Centre in 8 years, and they still didn't finish the project. Under 8 years, they still didn't deliver the project. So coming into government, I was pleased to see that the CLP government got on with the job and finished off that project in Tennant Creek. But small business, Mr Deputy Speaker, really is the backbone of the Barkly, and whether it's a roadhouse, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a construction business, civil business. We've just had the local hardware store change hands, owned by a local person. All of the roadhouses in the region are delivering for locals and attracting tourists as well. Those that come from Tennant Creek would certainly have heard the word "woks up." Woks up, and the member for 𝒂𝒍𝒖𝒄 and certainly the Central Australian members should be well aware that there's now a shop down there in Alice Springs as well. But all of those businesses are not only employing locals, they're contributing to the economy right across the Barkly region. So our government is supporting businesses to ramp up operations. We've exempted payroll tax for apprentices and trainees, and we're also, at the moment in Tennant Creek, tipping in $1 million to help progress further industrial land in Tennant Creek. I've spoken about roadhouses. We also have the Larimar Roadhouse, which is well known for the iconic Pink Panther Hotel in Larimar. That's recently changed hands. We've got Three Ways Roadhouse. I've spoken about the Mudgera Man. But of course, one of the important things about the Barkly and the economic growth in regions, you can't really speak about economic value without talking about roads. And that's what I want to talk about, roads, because this is one of the most important subjects. We know that you cannot unlock regional growth without connecting our regions, which will then enable us to connect the territory to the world. The CLP is making significant investment in our roads and enabling infrastructure, which is predominantly in the regions under budget 25-26, such as the $57.5 million upgrade to the Tennant Creek to Townsville Road, which is the Barkly Highway. This connects freight routes for the agriculture and mining industries, but also a very important road for locals living in the region. Particularly, there's family connections between Tennant Creek, the Barkly, Camberwell, Mount Isa. Such an important road to have that up to speed. I've spoken about the Beetaloo. We have a huge investment in the roads along the Carpentaria Highway. The Carpentaria Highway, Mr Deputy Speaker, now has, from the highway in, about 140 kilometres of double-lane bitumen. So this has been a significant investment which commenced some time ago after the federal coalition government committed to upgrading that particular road. The 25 budget also includes $28 million to upgrade, widen and seal 20 kilometres of unsealed road along the Sandover Highway. Another initiative the CLP is significantly investing in is the regional logistics hubs, $440 million equity funding commitment through the Australian Government. This network of hubs will ensure the Territory has the capacity to support an estimated $38 billion worth of projects proposed in mining, minerals and energy across our regions. But it's also important, Mr Speaker, because listening to Labor, initially I thought, well, you would have thought that they were investing in our regions. And so I just want to speak about some of the failures, and I think when I go back and look at what was promised and never delivered in the Barkly, that it's been quite a significant number of promises that were made over many years in the Barkly, but just simply weren't delivered. And recently there's been an ABC article about housing in Borroloola, and this really caught my attention when I read that article, because the Labor government back in roughly about 2020 committed $3.5 million to build a 35-lot subdivision in Borroloola. But like many projects that were promised by Labor, not one shovel has hit the ground. So this is what we're following up on at the moment, Mr Deputy Speaker, a Labor failure up there in Borroloola, a failure to deliver a subdivision that was promised over a 4-year period, but not one shovel hit the ground. We talk about early childhood, we talk about education, the importance of that giving opportunities for young people to not only excel and get an education, but to prepare themselves for the workforce. So another promise, Labor over a number of years promised early childhood learning centres in Tea Tree, Borroloola and Alpera.
Sorry.
43, can I request a time extension for them?
Is leave granted?
Aye.
I think the ayes have it. Leave is granted.
So, as I was saying, early childhood learning centres were promised by Labor in Tea Tree, Borroloola and Alpera. Never delivered. Never delivered. 3 significant projects to support education at an early age were never delivered by the Labor government. Labor promised a new health clinic in Borroloola, never delivered that. That's an election commitment that we'll be delivering for the people of Borroloola. When it comes to health, again, a significant part of being fit, healthy, able to participate in the workforce. On the 26th of April 2022, Labor promised 30 new dialysis facilities in the Northern Territory, 500 Aboriginal health worker positions, and they also promised that they would double the funding for rheumatic heart disease. Again, still haven't seen that promise that was delivered. Promise not delivered, I should say. I do want to talk about airstrips as well, because the significance of airstrips and a recent announcement from the Commonwealth, and we'll be working with the NT to deliver sealed airstrips in Bludderwich and Ali Kurung. But again, Ali Kurung was promised roughly about 4 years ago by the Territory Labor government. So we're working with the federal government now to ensure that that project is delivered. Back in 2018, the Labor government said that they were going to build a new Bradag facility in Tennant Creek. They committed $5 million back in 2018. And I think it was just the other day there was a question about, well, what about housing in Tennant Creek? So under that project that they promised, $5 million for a Bradag facility, what they said was that when they built, what Labor said was that they were going to build the Bradag facility and it would free up 19 public houses as part of building that particular project. So they never delivered the project, and of course 19 public houses are still being used by Bradag to deliver that alcohol treatment and rehabilitation program in Tennant Creek. They also promised to build staff accommodation at the hospital, 12 units, a promise made back in 2020, 12 units. So that's 31 homes that have never been delivered in Tennant Creek by the Labor government, 31. There was a initiative under the regional deal to deliver 20 social and affordable houses under the regional deal. Labor went ahead and built 12. So again, 8 short. When you put those 3 projects together, there should have been 51 homes. What we've got so far out of all of those promises from Labor is just 12. So that's where the shortage of housing in Tennant Creek is coming from, Mr Deputy Speaker. When we, there's a number of other projects. Back in 2018, Labor promised $5.5 million for turbocharging tourism. Again, never been able to get to the bottom of where that $5.5 million actually went. They promised back in 2019 to build a new watch house at the police station. Never delivered. In 23, they promised $11.5 million for a watch house in Chinook Creek. The very same media release came out 12 months later with the same promise, and they still didn't deliver. So, again, what we see from Labor is managing the economy by media release, not actually delivering, making lots of promises, but never actually delivering. But I think the sad thing is that when you look at the 8 years under Labor, you've only got to look at why there was very little investment in the regions. And I'll just go through some of the projects that Labor put money into over the last 8 years under their government. When you hear them talking about investing in regions, but the reality is, and I'll rattle off some of these projects, but I can tell you where a lot of their money went. $164 million on an overpass on Tiger Brennan Drive, $100 million overspend on that particular project. That could have delivered 200 houses in the Barkly region. 200 houses, but they overspent that project by $100 million. They built the $145 million on the, well, it's still being built, invested $145 million on the Darwin Civic and State Square redevelopment. They built a police station at Nightcliff for $12.7 million, which was only manned between 8 a.m. and 4:21. They paid out to youth offenders the sum of $35 million. They built a $12 million grandstand at Fanny Bay. They overspent $14 million on the Garramula Boulevard. The one that always caught my attention was they spent $432,000 on a bus stop that they moved from Kavanagh Street to Smith Street and back again. so $432,000 of taxpayers' money built on a bus stop to move from Kavanagh Street to Smith Street and then back again. So $7 million budget blowout on the underground above-ground car park at Parliament House. We all know about the unshaded structure on Kavanagh Street. $2.7 million they spent on that, Mr Deputy Speaker. Now, that could have been spent in the regions more effectively than an unshaded structure on Kavanagh Street. They spent $4.3 million on a consultancy into health's COVID response, which ended up before ICAC. So I'm still not sure what the detail of that was, but $4.3 million on a consultancy that ended up before ICAC. $2 million overspend on the Myeli Point Playground, $80,000 to review the the unshaded structure on Kavanagh Street. There was a $1 million overspend on the demolition of the Chan building. $220,000 spent on a renewable targets project, which was made public after an FOI request with every, and I think we've heard this today, every single page was redacted, even though they spent $220,000 on that report. But these are the ones that, this one has always worried me, that the Labor government spent $40,000 to advertise Boundless Possible on a rocket launched out of Queensland in November 2018. Advertising Boundless Possible on a rocket launched in Queensland, and it cost taxpayers $40,000. Now, surely there could have been $40,000 could have been committed to something more beneficial to Territorians, to people, the taxpayers here in the Territory, than spending $40,000 to advertise Boundless Possible on a rocket launched out of Queensland in November 2018. But as the Deputy Chief Minister says, and this is one of the Deputy Chief Minister's favourites, $5,000 spent to rent a Christmas tree. So these are just some of the examples of where Labor spent taxpayers' money over an 8-year period while in government. But at the same time, Mr Deputy Speaker, Housing was neglected in the Barclay. As I said, I think, and I quoted the nurses' quarters, 12 nurses' quarters never built, 19 homes never freed up, the Bradag facility never built, lack of investment in roads, and it just goes on and on and on. So for Labor to stand up in here and start talking about how they support the regions, how they've been investing in regions, not knowing where the Sun Cable project is, not knowing that we have an economic growth strategy in Tennant Creek, a workforce development plan, an Aboriginal workforce strategy. It just goes to show that there was very little investment in the Barclay and very little care for what was actually happening in the Barclay. So it's been a great opportunity to get up here, Mr Deputy Speaker, and talk about what's been happening and what are the economic opportunities in the regions. And what I can assure you is that the Barclay, there are plenty of opportunities. It is the land of opportunities, and I thank the House for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Member for Barclay. Any further speakers? Member for Daly.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Really got that wrong. Today I stand to support the motion brought forward by the Leader of the Opposition and the opportunity to speak on the economic value of the regions. And Mr Deputy Speaker, before I get into my speech, I do actually want to thank the member for Goyder for talking about my electorate in regards to the 𝒂𝒒 farmers out in Wadeyar, and that's something, a project that I've been watching closely and working very closely with. They do amazing work, and I acknowledge that, and I thank anyone in the House that gets up and speak about that, and it's good to see that there's at least one person interested in the Daly electorate, because I rarely ever hear anyone else speak about the Daly electorate when I bring up issues. So it's a rare opportunity that gets brought up by government members, so I do want to thank the member for Goyder for bringing that up, but I'll get back to that a bit later and talk about my experiences, the work I've done with the 𝒂𝒒 farmers, but also the work that they've done and shown me their vision for what they want in the 𝒂𝒒 region out on their homelands, around the black tip oysters, around the traditional fish traps, which I've been lucky enough to see myself being built in practice to ensure that there's local jobs on country for our young people and our older people too, to ensure that we're getting healthy food to our regions in the 𝒂𝒒 region. And also the recently established crab business, which the member for Goyder touched on. Theodore Dooling has just recently received his licence, which I know Theodore quite well. I've been out on his country many times, he's taken me out, but the pride that he shows, that he talks of setting up these opportunities through the 𝒂𝒒 farmers is something that I think every member in this chamber should go out and see, actually see it physically, see it in a practical sense, not just reading it from media releases, which is still important to bring it into the House, and I acknowledge the member for Goyder, but I would invite the member for Goyder out. I'd happily take you out there to see it. I know you've got connections out there through the acting CEO, Tracy, I believe your colleagues at the Humpty-Doo Barramundi farms out there, and acknowledge the amazing work that the Humpty-Doo Barramundi farms are doing with the young people in the 𝒂𝒒 region, with the 𝒂𝒒 Development Corporation through the 𝒂𝒒 Rangers. I was lucky enough to actually sit in one of those sessions to look at how you get fish to market, how you clean fish, but to get fish to market we need good roads. And I go back to the road along the Port Keats Road, at the staged approach that, you know, both sides of government, Labor, the CLP, we should all be investing in good roads and looking at staging that plan about and having commitments around that, because this is exactly what we're talking about. around having good economic opportunities for people out in our remote communities and our regional communities. In Berry Springs, we have many small agriculture businesses out in Berry Springs from our mango farmers. In Berry Springs, I know we have mango farms in the electorates of Goyder and the Deputy Chief Minister's electorate as well, which we all should be supporting and ensuring that we're investing in good roads so we get good fruit to market, which will mean we have higher value fruit here. But I will get back to my speech, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because it is an important opportunity to speak about our regions across the Northern Territory. We know that our regions are the heart of the Territory's economy, and we take in a wide range of sectors such as tourism to agriculture, which provides prosperity to the Northern Territory. And one thing I'm proud of is the former Territory Labor government knew that supporting the regions through our own economic growth plans could lay the foundation for the future prosperity of the Northern Territory. But we do need to question that. What has the CLP government done with the top-end regional economic growth plan for 2022-2023? Because we haven't heard anything, unfortunately, from the CLP government where that top-end regional economic growth plan for 2022-2023 has gone. And that really lays out the vision for the Northern Territory over that 8 years that economic plan has been put in place for our regions. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in my electorate of Daly, we know that tourism plays a vital part in the economic story here in the Northern Territory. The communities of Dundee Beach and Daly River, we have many fishing lodges down in Daly River and Dundee, but also fishing charters that take our tourists out to ensure that they enjoy the Territory. We also have Litchfield National Park in my electorate, a beautiful big electorate, and I will acknowledge the expansion of the Litchfield National Park, and I think that's something that all members in the House this evening would agree that this is good for the Northern Territory, that we've seen an expansion of Litchfield National Parks, which will mean more camping, it will mean more visitation for Litchfield National Park, it will also mean that we attract more tourists to the Northern Territory when we showcase our wonderful national parks such as Litchfield. Because when tourists come up, my electorate, for example, sits in the heart of Berry Springs, at the Berry Springs Shopping Centre. And we have a lot of foot traffic that comes through my electorate, and while we have many constituents come through, we have many tourists from interstate and international coming into my electorate office and asking what they can do around the region. Many people are heading out to Litchfield National Park and they'll usually ask for a tip. Where's the best waterhole to go? And we know we have many we've got many waterholes out there, and we've seen the expansions of that out there from Bully Rock Hole. We know that's a very popular place, and it's easy access for families and kids to get into those rock holes in there. The Central Valley was an expansion under the Territory Labor government. I've only camped there once, but that is a beautiful rock hole. And that's right, Leader of the Opposition, it is very hard to book a spot. I was actually trying to book a spot last dry season. I came in a little bit late because you never know in this job when you might get a weekend or two, and usually you can only book something out a few days out if you've got a weekend off, but that is usually booked out months and months in advance. And usually you have to I think the website actually only allows 6 months ahead to book out. It's so popular, because otherwise people would be booking years and years out. So they have restricted it. But going back to my electorate and the neighbouring electorates, We know that our mangoes are the largest horticultural commodity in the Territory. That industry contributes over $128 million to the economy during harvest. It employs 3,500 workers. We know that Territory mango farmers produce 52% of Australia's crop and supply, and it's usually the first crop of the season to Australian consumers too. Madam Speaker, sorry, I missed the changeover. Madam Speaker, we also know the mango industry is one of the most significant economic drivers in the Daly electorate. Mango production supports a wide network of local growers, transport operators, packaging facilities and export businesses, creating strong regional employment and investment opportunities. During the harvest season, the industry generates substantial seasonal employment, attracting local workers, backpackers and short-term labourers. This seasonal workforce injects money into local communities through accommodation, retail, hospitality, spending. We know that the mango sector also stimulates secondary industries such as, refrigeration to store the mangoes, the freight, the equipment that's supplied, and which has a huge economic impact on those other industries across the Northern Territory. Madam Speaker, moving across, I have many cattle stations in my electorate. One of the most famous ones, which I'm sure many of the members in the government are aware of, is Tipperary Station. We know they do a wonderful job down there and down close to Daly River, in between Daly River and Adelaide River, but also the other agriculture industries in the electorate, such as the cattle industry. We know that they play a huge part in the Territory's economy, and it's valued approximately at $1.2 billion annually, including across the Daly electorate's economy, providing significant income, employment and investment opportunities for the region. Madam Speaker, but also some of the work that I've been proud to be working on, not just in the rural area, but also further out along the Port Keats Road amongst many Aboriginal communities, was the development of local decision-making agreements that were put in place, which unfortunately have been taken away from the Country Liberal Party. This is something that local communities have been working side by side with government around the aspirations of their community. And we know that that can take time when we're looking at a holistic approach, from housing to health to jobs on country to better education services for Aboriginal communities, and then bundling that up all into an agreement over whether that be 4 years, whether that be a 5-year agreement, or whether that be a 10-year agreement. But one I'm constantly speaking about in this chamber is the community of Emu Point. It's only a small homeland, maybe 100 people, give or take, in that community with a few houses. But I remember when I was first elected in 2021, and we had a community cabinet in 𝒂𝒊𝒄, and it was suggested that we stay for the week in 𝒂𝒊𝒄. And I said, well, why not? Why 𝒂𝒊𝒄? What about the smaller communities along the Port Keats Road? Because generally we know, because of the small population, they generally get missed. So we did a road trip. We started in 𝒂𝒊𝒄. We went to Palumpa during that trip, but then we went to Daly River, which is further up the road, but we stopped in at Emu Point to the homeland. So we had the whole community in Emu Point for that community cabinet. And what was very touching and inspiring was one of the young ladies, she would have been about 15 or 16, she actually got up and spoke in front of our cabinet to talk about the aspirations of what they wanted for that community. And what came out of that meeting, I'll lay out in a second, but she spoke of the need for better housing. They hadn't had any upgrades to housing in Emu Point since the early 90s. So no repairs and maintenance, no upgrades to housing, they'd just been deteriorated. And that's a shame for all governments. I'm not trying to blame any one particular government. We know that we're short of funding here in the Northern Territory. We rely heavily on the federal government to top us up, but this is a community that has really high school attendance. I know when we were in government, it was up around 90% plus. I'm not sure what it is now, but I'll speak to the Education Minister at a later time to see if those school attendance are still up. But we know that housing is key to school attendance, which then leads to to jobs for our young people. But more importantly, for people staying on their traditional lands, their country, to speak their traditional language, so that they have an identity when they grow up. So what was laid out in Emu Point, and here's the document that was signed by myself, Selena Uibo as well as the Aboriginal Affairs Minister at the time, and Nicole Madison was also out there for that signing, that important signing ceremony. And so they identified some of the issues around one of the priorities being housing, and in that it was additional housings to address the overcrowding and maintenance to existing housing to bring them up to standard. At that time, the department did a lot of work to look at the population of Emu Point, collecting data, how many people were living there, and they identified they needed roughly they needed 4 new houses. So that housing is about to be handed over shortly, and I want to thank Big River Housing for their work in that space. They do a lot of work in the region. They employ local people from the region as well. They've done work in Daly River. They're about to start work in Pepperminardi, and now they're just finishing off those 4 new houses for Emu Point. They're also, in the agreement, looking at exploring options to support Murong in construction of additional houses to support local employment. So Murong is a recently established Aboriginal corporation, which was also embedded in this local decision-making agreement, and now they're up and running successfully as an Aboriginal corporation. So there's a body there that works directly with the Northern Territory government departments on these priorities to work through. And when we talk about accountability, the best thing about this document is that it holds everyone to account. So when I head out to Emu Point, the first thing that Terry Sam says to me, the old man out there, is, Duran, look, we've got the 4 new houses, we've had upgrades to all the existing houses that are out there, but where's this at? So, for example, the 4 houses, where's this at? I was able to go back at the time and actually follow that up with the minister, going, look, this is in the agreement, this is a 4-year agreement, this is the next stage where the community would like to go, and we're able to kickstart that, which saw local workers. We know education is obviously a key to that, and when we're talking about economic development for our regions, ensuring that all our kids are attending school. We've seen the construction of additional education facilities. So out there, they actually they didn't have any accommodation for the school principal, and I remember at the time, Samuel Saylor, his name is, he's now left. He won NAIDOC Principal of the Year a couple of years ago, but he was literally living in the side of the school next to the classroom, a small room, but now we've been able to actually get accommodation for our visiting, for the school principals and teachers that are out there at the moment. So that's really important to ensure that we have continuity of school principle, consistency with the students to ensure that they build those relationships with the families, build the relationship with the students so that the students feel safe and comfortable on their learning journey. One thing I was also proud that came out of the agreement was the establishment of a school council, Madam Speaker. We've got community wellbeing as well, so those options are still there. Establishing a ranger service is one of those, which leads to further jobs. We know that it's important that rangers play an important role to caring for country, but also for our biosecurity up in the top end with the threats that we see that may come in from the north into the Northern Territory, and our Aboriginal rangers are usually the first to respond to that. Madam Speaker, I will note the time is just ticking down, but I will ask for an extension of time.
Sure. Is an extension of time granted? All those in favour say aye, to the contrary no. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So going back, when we're looking at a holistic approach, I would encourage the CLP government to go back, especially, you know, for a community like Emu Point, who are proud of this local decision-making agreement. They've put a lot of work into this local decision-making agreement. They put a lot of time and effort, and it's unfortunately that this has been pulled away. We shouldn't be playing politics with agreements like this, because this is about people's life and well-being. To improve their lives. We talk about improving our education outcomes. Well, that is here in this agreement. When we're looking at jobs on country, that is here in this agreement. I would happily take the Minister, Steve Edgington, out to Emu Point to meet with the community. That's a commitment I would happily make to him. I'd love to drive out there and meet with him and look at those houses, the new houses, the school, the Education Minister. I'd highly recommend you visit the school. It's a beautiful little school out there with school attendance at an all-time high, as we talked about before. But also, going back to the Thumara sea farmers that the member for Goyder was speaking about earlier, which I appreciate his contribution to that. One of the issues that constantly is talked about is ensuring that we have good roads that are connected into Darwin, because we can talk about you know, these great initiatives from the black oysters that have just started out there. We can talk about the fishing industry, the traditional fish traps that are out there. We can also continually talk about the bait program out there, but we need connectivity into Darwin. So
Member
the produce
sorry,
from that gets to market.
Could you round off, please? It's now 7 o'clock.
That's no problem. So in finishing, Madam Speaker, I do want to thank the Leader for the Opposition for bringing this important motion forward. Thank you, and I move the question be put.
The time's expired.
Okay.
It's now 7 o'clock, Member for Daly. And that concludes general business.